2025. If you guys could keep it down in the back, we appreciate it. Thank you. Please join us in the pledge. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. And now we'll have roll call, please, starting with Scarlett.
Scarlett Cantley.
Frank Bell.
Oh, Mary Viator, sorry.
Michael Johnson.
Richard Vassalotti.
Elizabeth Accomando.
Patricia Farrell.
Eddie Argue.
Burgess Hanson, Mr. Jay Foy and Mr. Rob Robinson are also here. They're just in an office right now.
Ricardo Peraza, Juniper Landscaping. Jeff Sisolak.
Kenny Lawrence.
And do we have anybody joining us online tonight, Burgess?
I don't believe so.
No? Okay, great. So thank you, everyone, for coming. We appreciate the residents coming out to our meetings. I want to remind you that you can find a lot of information on our website, indiantrail.com, meeting information, maintenance requests, all things of that nature. We have comment cards by the door. If you would like to speak during an item, please put that agenda item on your comment card and turn it in, and we'll call you as that. It's okay. I've done it. We'll call you before the vote on that item. And if it's something that's not on the agenda, we'll call you up at public comment around 7:30. If you'd like to speak to each other in the audience, please step outside and step away from the window because it's very distracting when the audience is speaking and we're trying to hear each other, or if you're right outside the window, we can hear everything. And I'd like to ask that everybody have decorum, no outbursts. You know, we have business to conduct, and we would like to do that without so many major disruptions. So thank you again, and don't forget to silence your cell phones if you have not already. And now, Patty, do you have any welcoming remarks?
Welcome, everybody. No.
Welcome, everyone. Contemplating talking about this, but I think it's necessary to bring it up. I'm hoping we can turn a negative into a positive. Many of us have lived out here for a very long time, and we love our community. And we do not like a lot of the changes, and we're fearful of our future. And I get that, and I understand it. But when we, the public, try to represent our community, whether it be here, online, social media, at the Board of County Commissioners, please conduct yourself in a professional manner. When someone who is representing our community yells, screams, in the past has threatened district staff, makes inappropriate comments to county commissioners, or is escorted out of chambers by PBSO, it looks really, really bad. And it paints a reflection of our entire community. Like it or not, we are at the mercy of the county. And if people are going to be disrespectful, we will be overlooked. So please, let's take that passion and love for our community, sprinkle some sugar on it, and be a voice that will want to be heard and respected by everyone. And those were my opening remarks. Thank you very much.
Eddie Argue. I want to thank the residents that actually go to meetings and are paying attention. And I understand their frustration. They feel ignored. And quite frankly, the proof is in the pudding. We've been ignored for too long. And so I applaud their First Amendment right to be able to speak out and say whatever they want to say, whenever they want to say it. We may not like it, but it is their First Amendment right. So with that, I'm gonna leave it at that.
Michael?
Thank you.
Okay. All right, then let's get to it. Item 5.1, agenda approval. Do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions? Hearing none.
I'll
We
make
have
a
a motion.
motion. Make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm just checking to see if there was any more changes. There seems to be a lot of last minute amendments and additions lately, so I'm good.
Okay, see that it passes 5-0. Item 6, consider the service provider agreement or youth athletic sport permit for the Acreage Athletic League. I'm gonna turn this over to Mr. Hanson.
Good evening. Thank you, Ms. Akamundo. Welcome board members and audience, both here and on Zoom. So I'm not sure if it was at the last board meeting, it was requested that we bring back a service provider agreement as well as a permit for the board to consider as options. And during that time frame, Mr. Lawrence and I and other staff, we met along with individual board members with members of the executive committee of the Acreage Athletic League, AAL. And I think those meetings went very well. But as a result of those and looking back, I just didn't want to bring forward a service provider and permit. And during agenda review, Ms. Akamundo had requested that if staff can try to figure out some way to put this to a final or to finality for tonight, that would be, in the best interest. So what we try to do after those meetings is come up with something that was a little different than a service provider or just a permit with a bunch of conditions, stapled on the back of it. So it's not a service provider. We're just calling it for right now, nonprofit, athletic user permit. Gives first priority, and Mr. Lawrence will go into more detail. It gives them some of those protections or that they've talked about, but it also gives us some flexibility as well. And on top of it, it also, I think, gives us the ability to make sure those fields are properly used and are getting the maintenance and the healing or the remediation that they need, which has been important, just not for the district, but for anybody that uses those fields. So with that, I'll let Mr. Lawrence start and maybe just go first. Well, let me ask the board, do you want us to go over the service provider agreement, permit, and the latest thing that we did send out because we worked on it over the weekend, the user agreement, or how would the board like us to move forward?
Through the chair. I was going back through history on how this all started. And 2.5 years ago, it was stated at a public meeting that we needed to make some modifications to the service provider and updating them, some legal concerns. And at that time, I questioned what they were. And I said, okay, let's make them. The board directed that they be made. Since then, it has been slow walked back to this board. And there's been a lot of things that have happened and a lot of damage that's been done. And quite frankly, I don't like the direction that this has gone in. And I hope that we can come to a resolution tonight. But when it comes to providing legal opinion to the board about agreements that you wrote, I think that it needs to be brought to the whole board. Just because somebody has an agenda and they're asking questions and they want to make changes, and then to drag it out for 2.5 years and drag a nonprofit organization that has had a historical relationship with this district since for 32 years, drag them through the mud. It just is not right. And so I want to hear everything that's being presented and why we think that these changes are what should be recommended. Okay? Thank you.
Through the chair, just before Mr. Lawrence goes, so I take serious offense to that, Ms. Argue, because I haven't slow walked anything. I've taken direction from the board.
No, the board has
No.
too. I'm not talking about just staff. But
Okay.
yet
But it
I've
seems like
yet to
that was
receive a
directed
legal
at me.
opinion about the agreement.
Yeah.
And it's been strung along. And that needs to be on the record, because the record is already there, but I'm culminating it tonight.
Okay, well, I think we're gonna put things on the record. I would like to state that I believe we had a meeting with staff and AAL over the SPA. We made arrangements for them to come back in August so that we can hopefully finalize and move things along. They canceled it. There was nothing back from them until October, and that was to put it on the agenda without having another workshop to review their SPA. So as far as I'm concerned, I think there's been some delaying and slow dragging on more than just staff, us. It's everybody.
I'm not gonna go
So-
into the nitty gritty details, but I can dispute every single thing that you've said and give the
Well,
reason why
please,
it happened.
go ahead.
I'm not going to.
Well, why? Because you have nothing.
All right,
No,
let's-
no,
let's-
because I have
all right,
everything.
You have nothing, 'cause
Let's-
otherwise you would.
It's already.
You
in
have
public
never
record,
have
Patty.
any
All right,
problem
let's-
putting
okay.
everything out there. That's why you have nothing.
No, because
Okay, that's, stop, please.
why are you looking at me and telling me
Um,
to stop?
Because this is going on, I'm looking at both
Yeah.
of you.
Okay, but you're looking at me.
You can
Oh.
look at me too.
Let me
There
turn
we
my
go.
chair.
There we go. Better?
I said, ladies, plural. Let's not argue over this. We're trying to come to a resolution. There's been a lot of issues. And yeah, it's taken a lot of time. So let's try to resolve it tonight so they can move forward with their games, with their season. That's what we're trying to do tonight.
What I want to know is what lot of issues have there been?
We don't need to,
That's
we're
what I
gonna
wanna know.
rehash every single thing that we've
Because
talked
they're all
about every
petty.
month.
It's all
Okay,
petty.
in your opinion, and that's
Yeah.
fine, we're not gonna argue. Mr. Lawrence, hold on, first of all, do you want to hear all three options? Have you had your, excuse me, have you had your meetings? What would you like to hear? I want to hear a consensus from the board, not just from one person. Everybody has an equal voice.
Exactly.
No, I said, I don't mind hearing the updates, you know,
Okay.
the changes,
So,
the cliff notes.
Yes.
okay,
I,
okay,
Same.
same?
I agree,
Better?
especially on the new one that you guys just
Okay.
worked on this weekend.
There we go. Thank you very much. Mr. Lawrence,
Good evening, Board of Supervisors, professional staff, public. Some of the changes that we kind of discussed over the last week with everybody and some of the concerns have always been obviously the financial reporting and getting a lot of the documents in on time that the original service provider agreement was requiring. So that was one of the things we kind of looked at. Based off of it being called the service provider agreement, that was one of the reasons we were stuck with the record swap. Having this agreement this way allows us to kind of get around some of those areas. This agreement, the term of the agreement would actually start in fall. The proposed start would be about a year. If everything went smooth, then it would be extended for 4 years from that point forward. This, just like the SPA, is subject to the permit. Each little permit would basically give the district a package of what that season would require. Every season is a little bit different. Obviously, you're not gonna have the same food trucks or same coaches at every single event. So you have individual permits that are gonna dictate what's at that event or that season. The programs that the athletic league are currently providing are football, soccer, softball, baseball, and basketball. Based off of that, the locations that were chosen to put in this agreement for now is ACP North, Sycamore Park, and Temple to meet those requirements that everybody was looking for. The in-kind benefits are all broken down right here. This was based off of an average use of the park, just ACP North itself. This is for the football fields. It does not include the baseball fields. It did take in consideration some of the press box, but nothing down at South Expansion. And it doesn't have anything to do with the maintenance of the fields as well. We did decide at this point to pull the sponsorship part out of this so that it has its own agreement. Reason being, in the future, if the board had a reason, like say budgeting was a problem, they could actually pull that from the budgeting for that year and maybe reconsider it the following year. Because this is an agreement now, we're able to eliminate a lot of the reporting requirements that was in the SPA itself. So a lot of the finance stuff was pulled out. The only thing really being asked for this time is the same documents that we would require with the permit itself, which is schedules, background, well, affidavits for background checks and things like that, certain state statutes, that's it. So, other than that, there's been some discussions about potentially extending light hours at ACP North. Kind of talked about going till 9:15 for the fields, 9:30 for the parking lot, to allow for everybody to have sufficient time up there. I did mention that it would be a policy change because obviously the lights are till 9 o'clock right now. It does affect additional costs as far as lighting going an extra half hour. It doesn't seem like a lot, but over a week, 6 days a week, throughout the year, it does add up. Let's see. A lot of the other stuff has basically stayed the same. Speaking with the athletic league, they are working on the insurance and the background checks to become compliant in those areas. We did receive schedules today and updated insurance information. I haven't had a chance to go over it with staff yet to confirm, but a lot of that's in the works currently. Outside of that, the agreement's pretty much the same. Nothing's really changed. It's just a lot of legal information, unless you guys have any questions.
I'm sorry, at the very beginning, you were discussing with, what's the agreement length for?
So the agreement itself would start in the fall season. So spring's already like halfway through, obviously,
You're
it's
starting, yeah.
where it is right now.
Mhm.
So this would actually start for fall, go for a year from that point, and as long as there's no issues with the permits or any of the information that everybody needs, obviously we discussed with the board. It could be extended for another 4 years, giving it a 5-year term at that point.
And the fall season starts July, is that correct? July,
Correct.
okay, so we're not looking at September. When people think fall, they're thinking
Correct.
the fall season, but this is actually just a few months out.
And we do have a request in here to have the information 45 days in advance of the season. That's pretty standard. Most municipalities require somewhere around that time.
Okay.
And it gives us time to kind of collect the information. And if it has to go in front of the board for some reason, we have the full package.
There's enough time. Or just want to say something?
Yes, just quickly to follow up on that. So it used to be 60 days and we trimmed it down to 45 because I just don't think we needed the extra 15 days.
Okay.
I think that helps AAL too.
And it's not going to be subject to, obviously, some of the events, you're not going to know who the food trucks are or whatever. That won't hold up a permit. We really need to affidavits for the coaches. We need to know, like, the list of coaches who'd be out there. We would need, obviously, the schedules, and we would need the season dates. That basic information plus the insurance to ensure that that's active for that sport.
Okay.
That's the other important thing. We're not requesting all these records either. So we need affidavits on the concussion certificates and, as he stated, the level 2 background, and that's it. But if we need more, we reserve the right to request it on a case by case basis, but I don't foresee us
So-
really needing that.
Right, so if a resident or a parent wants information, they will no longer be coming to us. They'll be going directly to the AAL and get that information from them. It pulls us out of it.
Correct.
Except for the information like the permits and
Right.
things like that, anything that we possess.
Right,
is
but I'm
public
talking like
record.
financial
Anything
records
else,
and
yeah,
minutes and all of that have seemed to be requested for the past year or so.
Yeah,
So
I just want to be clear.
That
about
separates the
for the record.
district from that.
Yes.
So if anybody, takes issue with anything that they're doing, that's to be contacting them. Michael? Rich?
Few questions. First off, for Mr. Palin, Ms. Viator. Can this, nonprofit athletics user agreement be amended or changed at any time? So it's signed, it's done. Let's say we're in our first year, seeing how things are going. Obviously, things can be dynamic. Hey, maybe we should have done this, or the AAL has a suggestion and said maybe we could do that and brought to the board and we could say, yes, we could change that. Is that possible? Or is it set in stone, it's signed, and that's how it is?
Changes would be by the agreement between parties, between the board and the AAL during the term that's established in the contract.
Okay.
In the agreement,
Okay, so that would be something we could talk about.
or whatever we're talking about. Is it an agreement or a permit? If it's a permit, then the board has more control over, I would think, over the terms of a permit.
Okay,
But you're essentially putting contract-like terms into a permit as conditions, so, you're not automatically something that the board could just change. You can raise it to the, if there's some issue that's come up, you can raise it with the permit holder.
okay,
You can mutually agree to change.
okay, sure. Something else that I spoke about in the past when we had our workshop and everything. If this is possibly the way we're going, I want to make sure, I'm very serious about this, that if there are practices going on, that somewhere there's still some field space available for the community to do their own thing. If they want to play catch, if there's a group of 7 kids that want to have a pickup game or whatever, I want to make sure that is, that's available. I mentioned the incident 2 years ago when a group of 10-year-old girls were rejected because the AAL didn't like them near their what they were, their evaluations when they had that whole entire field there. I thought that was completely inappropriate. And then just recently, apparently, someone made a valiant effort just 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, to have another group of kids ejected. So we definitely need to have some field space open somewhere for these residents that pay taxes out here that may not be a part of the football league or something like that, but they need somewhere to go. I understand on game days and the fields are locked down. I get that. But when we're having practices and we have all these fields, you know, maybe they can be directed to the South Expansion Park or something like that, but we got to have some fields. I have other things too. Do you want me to keep going? You want to talk about this? Does anybody want to talk about this right now?
Did you?
I was just doing it quickly. So in the upcoming fiscal year 26, and of course it'll be, you know, up to the board to approve it, but we have the grant for Citrus Grove Park for permanent lighting there for that little field, which we would like to turn into a multi-purpose general play field. So that's one consideration. And then in subsequent fiscal years, we're hoping to also make the recommendation to the board, depending on financial limits, that we do that at other parks, whether it be Sycamore, Temple, Bob Hoffel, those types of location. So
keep
try to,
going.
yeah, well, I was gonna say, we want to try to spread it so kids don't have to come to ACP or just Citrus Grove.
Right.
They can go to the different neighborhood parks.
But if they live near ACP, I don't see them getting on their bike. I'm not on my bikes and driving to Citrus Grove or somewhere
Mhm.
else. I mean, it's just too far. It's too dangerous. But that's just my opinion. So, you know, if there's somewhere in ACP where there's an area that, and I think we can work this out, I'm sure. So we'll go with that. Right. So I recently spoke with someone who's in charge of parks for a nearby city. And this person said to me that, and quote unquote, we are crazy for allowing field use for free. Now, I know that some places do that and a lot of places charge. I'm not certain I completely agree with the in-kind benefit given by the district, given that it's on the backs of the taxpayers. So I think we should be charging a flat rate for the use of our fields and facilities. Nothing exorbitant, something that the board and staff can figure out at a fair and reasonable rate. And we have, people are paying for registration fees and things like that. And I think some of that needs to come back to the district. You know, what was that figure I saw for $288,000? Is that what I saw?
going back to it.
That's just a field use waiver. Add all that up. That's significant.
And that's based off of the current hourly rate that the park would go for with the policy as of today.
So.
And that
obviously,
does minus out the rest period throughout the year.
I'm not asking for $288,000, but some form of a flat rate, something small to give back to the district. I think that's a fair ask, and that's something that we could look into. And then, my last concern here, and I don't think it'll be in here, maybe it's in the parks or something like that. Obviously, our number one priority is the safety of our children. I think everybody can agree on that. And over my years of fire rescue, and I even seen it recently, somebody sent me a picture, it wasn't, and probably before I was on the board here, but anyways, we need to implement a strict parking policy and a contract for towing, particularly at the southeast gate of the North Campus, where fire rescue has the ability to drive on our fields. That area gets blocked on numerous occasions by vehicles, so I would like to see us put up large signs that says fire rescue only. You're subject to immediate towing. I would like to see us have a contract with that. And I would like the AAL to constantly remind all their parents and participants that, hey, please don't park there or you could be towed. And that's just for the safety of our children. I've talked about it in the past of us having to go out to field 3 for a broken leg. Before we used to have a gate there where we could drive out. So if those are blocked, that's obviously no good. So those are just some of my concerns at the moment. I appreciate your time.
We're talking about just the service provider agreement,
Correct.
the user agreement, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
So under the previous service provider agreement, all sports were listed in the service provider agreement for the Acreage Athletic League. Is there a reason why we've reduced that list?
This list is actually based off the current insurance list it's the list that we got from the insurance company at this point that's insured by them.
Okay. I'd like the clarification in here that it's all football. And includes, travel teams for football, flag football, 7v7, and travel teams for all of those sports. On page 13, under concessions, is there a reason that we're asking that all products and merchandise be approved by the Director of Parks?
Which
It's on
agreement
my page 13,
is that?
under
the newest one?
concessions. It's the next page after the football, what I was just talking about.
Is that the, yeah, is that the most current one? That might be the original.
C, yeah, 3.02
Was
C.
at the
I
beginning.
mean, excuse, through the chair, while he's looking for it, so it's just to confirm that they're not selling any tobacco products, alcohol products, anything like that, because those are prohibited per the
Right, but we can-
policy, but
We
we're
can
not there to.
specifically exclude that
Yeah.
so that they don't have to be providing a list every single time they're doing so, I mean, this can become, again, another burden on staff,
Correct.
right? So, I think setting out that there are to be, the things that are prohibited are listed in here. And I think that's fair enough. But actually having to provide a list and have it approved by the Parks Department every single time, you change things on the fly, whether it be candy or whatever,
Yeah, I don't think that definitely is not our
Okay,
intent.
well, can we just
Yeah.
put in there what's excluded prohibited,
That's-
and then they don't need to have approved.
And just for clarification from the board, as far as it's just alcohol and tobacco is all we're saying prohibiting.
But
So there's,
You need a separate permit for that anyway.
yeah, I know, I
Yeah.
understand.
Okay.
but
In the parks policy, it also meant like mentions fireworks and things like that. So the parks policy actually does.
We'll
go
just
into-
copy from that. Okay, thanks.
On the. One of the things that has been, brought up and I'm still trying to wrap my head around. I understand that staff needs to know a schedule, block of time when programs are running. We pretty much already know that. It's, aside from, a set date on this is when a Super Bowl is happening or whatever, but we know that flag football season starts from this date and it goes to this date. It's the same every year. And that's something that has evolved with the Acreage Athletic League and staff through the years in determining the best time to rest the fields. And, so I'm trying to understand why for each and every sport, we have to provide an actual schedule, and it appears people are asking for set times. Why that's necessary. We know that the program runs, it's Monday through Saturday for this. It's, so I don't understand why we can't set that out in the agreement. And then the only thing that needs to be done, and the burden on the staff, is providing the actual verifications and waivers for each sport when they begin, because we have to confirm that each one of those coaches have been verified under the level 2 search, correct?
Correct.
All right.
Well,
So-
excuse me one second. Oh, they're just providing us an acknowledgement that that's being done. We're not asking
It's a
them
waiver.
for, right, for
I
specific
understand we're not asking
each
for it.
time, right?
Yes, I know that. Because we can't ask for that. I mean, we could, but the statute does not require it. The statute has certain requirements that are being followed by the Acreage Athletic League. And I think we should be giving them an opportunity to present that and an update on other things that they're doing. So, but besides that, I personally think that we should just have the block times in terms of this is running from this time. We don't need to know that this team is practicing from 6:15 to 7:15. That kind of scheduling is not really needed. And while we're talking about field time and field space, it has always been that we don't have sufficient field space. Okay? That's the reason why we built the multipurpose park on the south side. It's also why we are building another field on the south side. It's not sufficient for the program that is there. And there are a lot of legal concerns, liability concerns, insurance concerns, just to name a few things. When you have non-permitted people on a field at the same time that you have a permit and a program running. And I'm going to tell you that I've had parents coming up to me recently asking me, and I'm not going to go into details, but I will tell you, they're asking me for assurances that everybody that's out there has been subjected to the same thing that the Acreage Athletic League coaches and program has. And the fact is, we couldn't provide that because it didn't exist. So,
Assurances for what?
I'm sorry?
Assurances for what? These
Well-
assurances that,
Well, there's background checks, there's security, there's insurance, there's a number of different
so
things.
should we set up a security booth at the entrance and scan everybody when they come into the parks 24/7?
I appreciate your ingenuity
Just
and thinking
asking.
that that's a great idea.
Yeah,
But what I'm talking about is
a lot
the
of people
field
aren't gonna
use.
make it.
And we're having somebody who runs a program, who has responsibilities that we're trying to hold them to, but we're not holding other people to it. okay?
So
And-
then let's just close the parks
You know,
and scrap
it's,
the
it's
whole
my time
thing.
to talk.
Alright,
This is not
let's
my
not
time to
argue.
argue
Well,
with
you're
you.
staring at me while you talk. And I'm letting you know, I
Well,
don't
you asked me a
agree
question,
with,
So I turned and I
I don't,
looked at
I'm
you.
letting you know, I don't agree
Good
with
Lord,
what you're
get over
saying.
yourself. I'm talking.
Okay.
The point is,
Can I just say, don't we have, isn't it in our parks policy that 10 and under does not need a permit? So
can I?
maybe we have to look at that. I'm just saying.
I'm gonna
So
address that. Because when that was brought to us, that issue, and by the way, it wasn't just a group of 10 little girls that wanted to play. It was actually a travel team. And the issue that we had at the time was we didn't have the north side. The south side was not being maintained properly. And we had the Acreage Athletic League trying to use a field that was not properly maintained in a limited area. And people started showing up to use the fields that didn't have permits. Well, they're on the field and they're permitted to be there. So I want to be clear about what that issue was. It was one of the past directors of that program, or president, or whatever the heck his title was, that actually approached that group on the direction of staff to ask them to leave. It escalated and the police were called, but it was by no means what was asserted in the public about what happened, or even here at these meetings. But the problem is, I'm sorry, did you have something to say, Kenny?
I didn't say anything.
Okay.
I would like to adjust and correct this, though.
Okay, well, it is on the public record,
Okay.
because we had it at a meeting, we discussed it, okay? Yet it's been misconstrued repeatedly ever since.
And I haven't had a chance to respond to it either.
So,
Through the chair, I think I'd like to hear what his explanation is since you brought it up.
go
And I'll
ahead.
mention names. So that evening, I received a call from Mr. Ashurst. They actually had the permit at the time for south expansion. He explained that there was a conflict between the AAL and the other group. He's making it seem like there was some kind of altercation. I asked him if he wanted to actually exercise his rights as a permit holder. He said yes. Sent out Mr. Sisolak to the field to ask the people to leave because he's asking them to leave based off the permit. That's what happened.
Okay,
Jeff would like to,
Yeah, I'm gonna add to that, I was the one that called the police. It wasn't anyone but me that called the police, because I did have a conversation and things got a little, up in arms, so to speak. I would like to say, just for the record, that they weren't actually on the field that was marked. They were behind the goalpost on the south side. So they weren't actually on the field, they were behind the goalpost.
okay, well, that's not what I recall, and I believe I was at the park that night
No.
when they were actually on the field.
And I know everybody
So-
that was involved with that. So
So,
that information that you got is wrong.
that I got, well,
Well,
I think
wherever you
if
got
I
it
was
from,
there and
you
I
said-
actually physically saw it with my own eyes,
I don't think
but
so.
regardless,
I don't believe that for 1 second.
Jeff,
wow,
Because you're not being truthful, Betty.
you're not being truthful.
Betty, I knew every person on that field. My daughter was on that field. Okay, I knew everybody that was there. And what
So-
you're saying is not what happened. So when you say these things, you gotta be,
The point is that it's been totally misconstrued that the Acreage Athletic League is the ones who kicked people out of the park.
they called up Mr. Sisolak to have
Okay.
them thrown out.
All right, and that's exactly what was just said.
Right.
Okay,
But
and
what,
isn't that
but it
gentleman
was
no longer
misconstrued.
with the organization? He's no longer with the
but
organization.
he wasn't the issue anyway in this situation. He was not. So,
is this has also happened other times as well.
Yeah, can we let Mr. Hanson
Yeah.
respond?
It's not about that. I just want to address, so one of the earlier questions that Ms. Argue had about why we're requesting some of the time specifically. So Mr. Lawrence and I talked, and this was after the meeting we had with you and the AAL I don't even think we had the discussion with any of the other board members, I don't think, but I do believe we had it with the AAL. But what we want to do with that is if there's a portion of like field one, like on the north side where there's a lot of scrimmaging going on, we want to be able to work with them and say, on this date, you were supposed to be on field one. We want to keep you off that section of field one, the north part, or however we decide to categorize it, and say, let's stay off that for a few days until it heals. So that's why we want to do that, but we're creating an electronic form, so it should be very easy. The other thing that we talked about with the executive board, to be specific for fairness, it was Mr. Quinn, Wendy, and Michelle, that Ed, Wendy, and Michelle. What we talked about with all of this is we're going to start having, once they get close to that season, within 45 days or within a couple weeks of the actual season starting, Mr. Sisolak and whoever they choose, because they may not be on the board in the future, but whoever will meet once a week at a minimum, face to face, and talk or send text, whether it's about injuries or anything else. So a lot of the issues probably have just been lack of communication or just not solid communication, and different sports board contacting either Jeff or Kenny. So I think that's part of the reason why we want those. It shouldn't be that big of a deal for them to lay that out, and we're gonna make it even more simple for them.
But the purpose of doing that is not to allow for other people to come in and use that.
That
field
is not
space.
our intent.
The intent
The
is
staff
for,
intent
is for resting the fields, because we've identified certain areas that are getting hit and need to be.
Yeah,
Okay.
because when I walked out there, it's been a few weeks, but you can tell on the north side where they're doing a lot of scrimmaging because, and we need them off there for a little bit. And so trying to rotate them around. So, but if the board wants to reallocate fields, I'll just say, from my perspective, those fields need time to heal. Number one, has nothing to do with the AAL, but number two, there is potential for friction. Now, I'm not identifying any groups or teams or individuals, just there's potential that if there's a permitted field and field next to it, but again, that's for the board to determine, not for staff.
But I think the board just really needs to understand that that exists, that, if I'm a parent who has a kid in a program, I want to know that the people that are out there have all passed the required, whatever training and clearances, that some random guy isn't out here on the field with a bunch of kids and we don't know. And then, of course, the whole issue of liability.
Yeah.
So-
Are we going, it's through the chair, please, Mr. Burgess wants it. So are we going to background check every parent?
I'm
Are we
talking,
gonna background check spectators? Where are you going with this? I don't understand.
okay, I'm wondering why.
Because
somebody
it
on the-
almost seems like you don't want
I'm-
residents of our community that pay
I do believe
taxes
it was my time.
out there.
I do believe it was my time. But I'm a little disconcerted that we have a board member here who seems to think that other coaches should be treated differently than, and not have the same requirements than we're expecting from the Acreage Athletic League. That's a little disconcerting to me, but anyway, it's still my time.
I know, but I wasn't done answering your question. So, I just want to reiterate, since we rewrote the parks policy and procedures about, what was that, a year, 18 months ago, I'm standing by my initial recommendation that the North Campus, I'm not talking about the South Field, the North Campus should be not available unless there is a permit. It just makes it easier. 2 weeks ago, once again, we had kids on dirt bikes going through that field because it's easy access. And while We do have Juniper staff, you know, by the time they can't even catch the kids, and by the time PBSO shows up, they're long gone. So again, I just wanted to reiterate that.
It's still my time.
She wants to
I just want to
answer
say,
something.
I want to say, I agree with you that if there's a team out there, they should have to follow the same exact thing that AAL has to do. If it's an organized team, if it's a travel team or whatever, they should have to follow the same policy. They should have to get the same insurance. They should have to get the same background check. I think that should be done. I think we should be making sure that we are making sure that there's proper SAM coverage, not only to protect AAL, but to protect us. Because we know that if we get sued because a child gets harmed, if AAL gets sued, they need to make sure they have coverage, and we need to make sure that it doesn't wind up impacting our residents and our district. So I agree with you. I do agree that, yes, we do need to make sure the people that are on that field, if it's an organized sport, that yes, they need to make sure that they are background check level 2 and that they have the proper insurance. I 100% agree with that. If it's a dad with a couple of kids going out there to play football and it's under 10 kids, that's fine. I think that's fine. But if it's a sports program, a travel team, or anything else like that, they should have the right policy set for it.
Thank you. So, and there's common decency. Most people know that there's permitted programs going on. And they know to stay off the field, but it seems there's other people who are trying to push the issue. So that's the point. Now we need to have staff there so that they can be the referee on this if we're allowing other people on these fields. So we need to increase our staff to be able to manage that. Because we have been in situations where people are on the field and they're not supposed to be there. And they're interfering with what else is going on. And I don't think it's fair to anyone who has a permit to have to deal with that. When we adopted that policy, I wanted to go back to that. It was the under 10 was to deal with, we picked that number because we had large groups of out of area soccer teams, right? That were coming and they were destroying our fields. And we were already struggling to keep up with the fields. So that was a problem. And in addition to that, we were grappling with, staff needed direction with, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kenny, you wanted direction for, you know, how do we determine, because originally I think staff wanted just nobody else being permitted at all, like allowed, not just permitted, but allowed. And I objected to that because we do have large families in our community, or, you know, a couple families get together and go out and, you know, throw a ball, kick a ball, whatever. And so how do you determine the difference between two families that are out there versus an organized team? And somehow in our policy, it says, it says it was supposed to exclude any organized team or league, but yet the policy right now reads to allow it. And, you know, and so that's a problem because that sort of defeats what we were discussing in the first place. It was supposed to be family, community members, that kind of thing. That was where that number 10 came from. It was not that if you had a travel team, for example, and you were trying to say, well, it's less than 10 kids, but, oh, you've got 3 travel teams, all the same group of people. You know, people will inherently try to get around what the rules are that's set. So I don't know what happened with the park policy, but that portion needs to be corrected unless the board agrees that it should stay the way that it is. That is not what the intention was from the discussions that we had back then. And I didn't catch that then, but I caught it because I was questioning what was happening. Did you want to say?
Well, I agree that we definitely have to look at this because Florida statute actually doesn't really put a number of 10 on it. It's basically 1 or more. And the problem, and I've kind of discussed this with them, is that we can look, and this is why the permit actually makes sense for the north side. one of the problems we may run into is, say we do know if there's a group out there, they're a part of a regular team, they've got a father that's a coach, it's known. But now they're out there on a day off and they're still using the field. I mean, where's that line where it separates it? Permitting ACP North will just assure that everybody out there is basically following some kind of permit. We could do the day pass that we talked about before, allowing for those groups, and we can go out there and just open up a field if we need to. That's, I mean, there's definitely got to be some policy updates, especially with the new level too.
Yeah. I do think that, I don't want to belabor this point, but, my son is on a number of different teams. And even as much as he has practices and games out there, we're still at the field on those off times, with his friends and with groups of people, you know, like just, you know, like, on Sunday we were there. And that actually had more to do with, high school. And running through plays, my son assisting some other players, running through plays. Again, and one of the people that was there was a coach from the league, but it had nothing to do with that coach, right? It had nothing to do with any of that. So, you know, the point is that if you're out there as a team, as an organization, as a league, then you should be held to the same standard as everybody else. And that was the whole point when we had that discussion. And I agree. I want our community to be able to come out and use the field, right? But I also want the fields to be utilized. That's why we have programs. And they're offering a program and we don't have sufficient fields. And we've had a challenge on properly maintaining these fields and balancing it. Not for nothing. We just opened up the fields a month and a half ago. And we're already saying that we're seeing wear. I think that's a whole other issue that we need to talk about, because it should only be, you know, every 6 months we're having to do that. And so anyway, but I also agree that it helps to rotate where the hammering is going on. So, so there was that. I was a little bit concerned that under section 0.3 or 3.03, it talks about just a select number of parks being identified as, you know, what facilities are included, when we've included Citrus Grove for when we need to move them, when we don't have fields available. And also it does not list South on here. And we've talked about that as well.
So we intentionally left South out until we figure out what's going on in Palm Beach County. And we just, if they need additional fields at Citrus Grove or anything else, they can easily put in a permit and get it. These are based on first priority for ACP and what was it, Sycamore and Temple.
So this is specifically just for first priority for a new permit. It is not relating to, it is not going to be misconstrued that because only these parks are listed for these specific things, then they cannot be anywhere else.
Correct.
Because there are times when we're going to have to move them elsewhere. Correct? Okay. I don't really know why we put the estimated value on here. I really just don't know what the purpose of that is. Again, it goes back to the district has the authority to run recreation. And we could spend a lot of taxpayer money running these programs. But when the board and the community supported having parks and recreation, the Acreage Athletic League already existed. And the purpose was that they would be the provider, the district would run the parks, okay? So in essence, there's a burden that's being taken off of the district that municipalities and counties don't have, right? Because municipalities and counties actually have an obligation because of what's there, and that's expected by the taxpayer. So typically, if you look at the counties and the municipalities that I've looked at, their user agreements for-profit programs, those people pay. But for nonprofit and I'm pretty sure that the one that you included in the backup with Royal Palm, there's no charge to that nonprofit and that sports league. And again, I'm sure we can find examples on both sides, but the thing is that we don't charge because that's our part of what was always the historic and legacy agreement between the district and Acreage Athletic League. And it's an important part because if we don't have parks, they don't have a place, and it's not them, they're providing a service to our community. So it's our children, our community that doesn't have a place for organized sports. And what happens when that need is not being met, then we end up having to go to other municipalities to have that need met. And so the Acreage Athletic League has always provided that for 32 years. And that's important to acknowledge. And I think it deserves a certain amount of respect.
Yeah, so just the first part of it, and I'll let him answer the second part of the question, but the reason why we put the daily rate or the hourly rate is that's what we would charge anyone. But more importantly, the reason why we put that in there, and something I think you and I have talked about this for a few years now, is to justify beginning to charge non-residents or individuals who do not reside within a unit that pays into the recreation, because they could live within the ITID boundaries, as you know, but just for the record and the public understanding, but they don't pay into the park. So it would be to capture that
Right.
and justify why AAL is charging that and why it's being passed directly back through to
So
the Indian Trail Improvement
So I'm
District.
glad you brought that up because I don't know that I have that marked in here, but somewhere in here, I read, I think it was in the permit. I read that it's specific, it says specifically that it's open to everyone and we have to charge everyone the same price. It's in the permit. I read it last night, the one that was just sent out. And I was shocked to see that, considering that every municipality charges a non-resident fee for non-residents. And we have been talking about getting to this at some point. So to specifically exclude, it's not there?
I don't see it.
Okay,
Do you have the page number?
I'll find it.
Yeah, I mean,
Because I
we
didn't
have
bring
it in
my-
there, Scrivener's error, probably from the past one, but. we'll-
Yeah.
It was never put in any.
I'll find it.
Please.
Just for the record, our lease agreement with Palm Beach County for Acre Community Park South.
For South.
prohibits Discriminatory charges against,
Correct.
between the district and anybody from outside, I mean, like unincorporated outside the district. But it's only Acres Community Park. South.
Only Acreage Community Park South. And so that doesn't apply to North. And that wouldn't necessarily preclude the Acreage Athletic League teams from using Acreage Park South because of that.
Like, no,
The difference is that if you're charging the use of a field, it must be for Acreage Community Park South or the part that is subject to the FCT, right? That portion must be the same for everyone. And I get that, right?
Right.
But there are areas in Acreage Community Park South that are excluded from that, right?
it's really.
Which seems to have changed recently, and that's a discussion that we need to have, because when we built that park, why would we have built a field and that we could not use unless we had permission from the county? Makes absolutely no sense.
We can't use it, we just can't charge. Can't, whoever uses
Okay,
it.
but
can't
we've been
collect
telling
dollars.
the acreage, the
Unless it goes back
nonprofits,
to the park.
we've been told by the nonprofits that they can't be there. So there's been
It's-
something that's changed here.
It's
and I
not
was
that they
involved-
can't be there.
Okay,
We
I was
can't
involved in the
s-
very beginning. And Mary, you and I went through this and we made sure that the things that were going to be used at that park would not be a problem with the trust. And we did that very early on because it didn't make sense to be building anything if we weren't gonna be able to use it. So I find it a little strange that suddenly there's a problem with that, so we need to talk more about that. That's a separate issue.
I don't recall.
You can use
Separate
the
issue.
park, you just
I'm not
can't.
going to
you
debate
just
it with you,
can't.
Elizabeth.
Oh.
I was here and I know what I've been told, and I'm bringing it up specifically relating to Acreage Community Park and the Acreage Athletic League can use that field, and it's not an issue. Is that correct?
I'm not gonna respond on that. I just don't recall. I'm not going to.
Okay.
All I know is any money that changes hands in the restricted area has to
In
be.
the restricted
designated-
area.
Right, in the restricted area, which is just about the whole south section, except for the amphitheater, 3/4 of the lawn and a portion of the parking lot. That is the only place where money can change hands and it does not go back to the park.
All right.
And believe me, I researched this because I ran into this problem. So believe me, I looked into this and that is it. And that's why we're trying to resolve that on a level where,
I'm not
How are we
gonna
gonna
go
fix
into
this?
that, but I'm
right,
going to
so
tell you
don't,
that
you
I
know.
was here through
I-
all of that.
Well, somehow it got missed back then, and
Yeah.
I wasn't here, so I'm not gonna say, all I know is what the facts are today. Kenny, did you wanna add something?
So the municipality you guys are talking about, the way they do it is they don't charge the nonprofits for the rental. What they do is they charge 20%, which is usually between $25 and $35, a non-resident fee. And that's something they'll collect within 15 days after that the season's started, basically, after they've collected the funds. So that's how they do it. It could be a little difficult in this situation because you can't really track the funds. I pulled up the actual permit right here. The part that you guys are seeing where it says fee collected, this would actually be signed by myself. It would have a waiver in that spot. And the only other spot that has anything is, it says additional fees and requirements may be applicable depending on the type of event or activity. Obviously, if this event is fee waiver, there's no fee here.
That's not what I was referring to. And when I come across it, I'll point it out, but it was definitely in, I'm pretty sure it was in the permit. The new permit and not the other one, and it definitely said that it would be the same fee that, anyway. So I can't remember the exact wording, but it said that the fee had to be the same across the board. The thing on the insurance, again, I still have an issue with this, and we had some discussions during our meeting, and I'm wondering what answers you have with respect to the things that were brought up there. And I believe one of them related to the golf cart
Mhm.
and whether automobile insurance was required for that.
Aegis has requested the full liability package, which Wendy is working on right now. They're trying to get that with what was presented that they emailed us. I forwarded that to Aegis and it wasn't enough information for them to actually clarify. So that's why they asked for the full package. They don't have an answer at this point.
Are we paying Aegis for these additional reviews and things? Because I'm finding typically, we always, the board set the policy, the board, and adopted it in our policies, and that was that. Why is Aegis so involved in things? And it seems like they're making decisions on behalf of the district. I don't know. I'm a little confused.
Through the chair. So they're here to protect the board or district, and they're making recommendations to the board. The board sets the policy, but I do have Brett Grimmel and also Ms. Heiser was here. I'm not sure where she went, but yeah, so they can address some of the insurance requirements. So we've been trying to work with Ms. Torado on some of these issues.
So the question was, do you have to have automobile vehicle insurance if you have a golf cart that the league uses at the park? So do we get an answer on that?
That's what we're waiting for. They didn't have enough info to be able to give us that. I'm unsure.
Well,
I'm unclear.
Who didn't have enough info?
Aegis.
Aegis.
Brad, are you there?
I think Brett and
Hi, everyone.
And
Can you
then-
hear me?
Hi, Brett.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to attend another ITID board meeting, and want to thank Kenny and for working with our team and regarding to some of these questions that they've had. And Betty, to address your first concern, no, Aegis does not get any form of additional compensation for any opinions rendered or whatnot, and they are just recommendations, best practices that our loss control and claims team often will look through with the filter of how do they best protect the district from unforeseen liability that could easily be prevented, especially when it's caused by an outside entity's exposures being brought onto district property. So regarding the golf carts, that was just a last minute question that came up. Most of the time, a golf cart is not going to be something factored into an auto liability policy. But if it meets the definition of what's known as a low-speed vehicle, where it's required to be licensed, then it could. So really what we were just looking for is we have not been provided full policy information to render any kind of opinion, just a confirmation of coverage with limits for each. Obviously, there is currently no auto liability policy that we saw on that confirmation of coverage for the AAL. So therefore, we're looking to see the policy language and the general liability policy to see if it addressed how it addressed mobile equipment, which would potentially provide coverage in that regard. So it's all we just basically wanted to be able to review the full policy language to address any questions or concerns that ITID staff or the board had.
Okay, so I just want to make it clear for the record. You are making recommendations to the staff. They're not requirements. It's not like we're not going to have coverage if the district says having a $3 million general liability umbrella policy is excessive, that somehow we're going to be violating our own insurance or anything else. Is that correct?
So no, it won't lead to something to where it's going to unfavorably lead to an unintentional cancellation of your policy or something like that. However, if there's a claim that pierces the other side's insurance and falls onto ITID's insurance policy due to insufficient limits, lack of coverage, failure to adequately transfer the risk, then that could obviously negatively impact future loss history for ITID, insurance rates, and insurability in certain lines of coverage. So that could have a long-lasting, up to 5+ year effect.
Brett, how long have you been providing services to the district?
We began, I believe it's about 5 years ago now.
Okay, so in the 5 years that you've from the Acreage Athletic League's programs in the parks?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? My audio was cutting out.
In the past 5 years, have we had a claim relating to Acreage Athletic League and the parks use?
To be honest, I wasn't even brought into anything regarding the insurance program for the Acreage Athletic League or the ALA, for that matter, until probably about a year ago when we started on this process of refining the service provider agreements, so just sharing best practices and whatnot. So I'm not aware of the full claims history of that insured, or not insured, so of either of those entities.
Okay, so the bottom line is, when other municipalities in the county aren't even requiring this excessive amount of insurance, I would urge the district to look at this again and bring this back to the board for more reasonable recommendations, because I keep hearing that, oh, Aegis, deferral to Aegis, and that's great. We can make recommendations, but ultimately the decisions that are made by this board need to be practical and reasonable. And remember, these are taxpayers that are trying to use our facilities as well. And we have insurance that we're already paying with their tax dollars. So I'm going to leave it at that. I think some of it is a bit excessive and we need to take a look at it. And that's all I
The
have.
residents are paying with their tax dollars for our insurance, not just the athletic league residents,
That's
every
right.
resident.
Every single resident
Right.
is paying for the insurance that we have, and
we
we
have,
haven't had
right.
any claims.
We
and-
have not, thankfully,
Okay, so
thankfully. That's what insurance is for in
we're
the event
specifically
of,
talking about the Acreage Athletic League
I
right
am-
now and their
Yes,
service provider.
absolutely.
And I think the agreement and the requirements for the insurance, I am stating again, are excessive, extremely
You're
excessive,
entitled to that
especially-
opinion.
especially when other municipalities in the county do not require it. So, thank you.
If I may speak to that, I mean, we always recommend a tailored approach to the insurance. So it's never going to be a cookie cutter approach to where the same exposures or, one person's exposure is going to warrant always this type of insurance. So we do recommend that the board and district staff have some decision making within that process to say, okay, this is excessive, this is not needed, or no, we need an increased level of insurance based on this new exposure being brought in. I also, Andy Jimenez with the carrier side, Florida Insurance Alliance, is also with us today, and I believe he is prepared to speak a few comments to that as well.
Yeah, just quickly though.
Yeah.
We did ask Aegis to come here. I forget how long ago that
Couple
was.
months ago.
Within a couple months, yeah, to set the new limits. The board made the decision based on what Aegis recommended and what staff recommended.
And I
So we're
disagreed with
based,
it then, and the things that I brought up then have actually come to pass. It's actually come to pass, exactly what I said. They can't get $2 million, $3 million SAM policies. It's not even out there. But bounce house companies, these people, they can't even get SAM policies. So it's ridiculous that we're making requirements that people cannot even get. That's my point.
Kenny, did we have another organization that had children under the age of 18 participating that was able to acquire the SAM coverage we're requesting?
Yes, we
Thank
had a
you.
couple different permits recently.
So it's out there.
Okay, I'd like to hear from the Acreage Athletic.
well, just quickly, I believe Mr. Jimenez. or
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah,
Andy.
yeah, well, so first I apologize for not being able to be there in person. Can you guys hear me okay?
We
Yeah.
can, thank you.
Okay, so just a quick comment on the recommendations that we make. We work with over 1,300 local governmental entities across the state, both large districts and smaller districts. And the recommendations that we make are based on the best practices and what other districts are doing. What we found is adequate coverage. As Brett mentioned, particularly, there's a lot of talk about protecting the district. Obviously, we all have the same goal. But particularly when it comes to creating a layer and insulating the district against claims that arise out of vendors or another party's negligence, I think that is why that's what it's important to have those recommendations. The last time we had this discussion was really that I was involved was regarding the Halloween event. And at that time, I think we all agreed that, you have to match the limits to the exposure. And I think a comment was made earlier regarding being a parent and having your children participate in the athletic program and ensuring that not just the coaches have gone through the background check, but that the companies have been vetted and have the appropriate insurance in place to make sure that if something happens, that there will be coverage in place to ensure that to the extent that they can, that the damaged party would be identified.
Thank you. A question. So my question to Andy. When you guys are giving your recommendation, it's not going off of what local parks are doing. You're going off of what you've seen across the board in programs that we have, not what Wellington is doing or Royal Palm, but lawsuits that you guys have seen that have affected programs that's where you're getting the reference of how much we should be getting for coverage. Is that correct?
Exactly. It's a combination of obviously what we're seeing, the claims, and we've had multiple situations where there have been claims made against either the nonprofit or the for-profit league that's running the program on district property. And obviously, they don't enjoy sovereign immunity protection. And we see the amount that they're paying, because sometimes the district is a named defendant, and we attend the mediations, and, you know, we settle for whatever amount we need to settle for, or we tender the claim directly to the private entity. But we're talking about settlements in the millions of dollars. And that's the reason why we're setting those limits. Now, I think there has to be some flexibility, going back to what I mentioned about, you know, matching the limits to the exposure. But I mean, if you start looking at what, you know, the jury verdicts, as well as some of these settlements, they're in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, particularly when you have a young child that's got a injury that's going to be with them for the rest of their lives.
And, you know, to statement for the district not to take that serious, that not only is program protected, but the district protected financially, I think it would be careless for us to lower the sum.
Rich?
I apologize if there was a question. I think the audio was going out, so I didn't quite hear the last comment.
There was no, it was a comment, not a question.
Thank you.
Kenny, anything else?
Not unless you guys have further questions.
I don't. Burgess?
No.
Would anybody like to make a motion?
I would like to hear from the Anchorage Athletic League, since they're the party to this agreement.
Did you guys want to speak? I know you said you were. It's up to you guys. You don't have to.
I have a question.
I don't think they even saw the final contract or what's
They
being
did.
proposed until when? When did you get that?
We sent it yesterday, but again,
Yesterday.
yeah,
Have you guys had a chance to review it? Do you have questions?
I have questions.
Mhm.
Who's going to be speaking for you guys today?
They didn't want to speak.
I just have questions.
Okay.
So question, when we met, you guys were gonna be going back and looking for coverage.
Mhm.
Where do you guys stand on that right now?
Currently, the insurance companies that I've reached out to are requiring a loss run report.
Mhm.
And so that's been asked from our current insurance carrier, waiting on that to provide that to them. And I have to give that along with some sort of questionnaire, so they want those two attachments sent together. So once I have the loss run reports or whatnot, they'll be forwarded to both insurance companies. And as of now as well, the current insurance carrier is also getting us a quote with what we've updated them with, that we're doing level 2 background checks and fingerprint and all that as well.
Through the
Just an
chair.
added comment, is there any way that we can get contact for your guys' insurance? I mean, if it's something that you guys, they could provide, maybe we can reach out to them to get a quote as well from them.
I think they only do government, right? Or what
I don't
do they
know.
do? Do you guys,
Andy?
do you guys do private?
No, they don't.
No, we can refer out to, you know, people that we work with in other companies. But Brent can take your information, and then we can have a conversation offline.
Get a call.
Okay.
Yeah,
Through the chair.
Miriam said she'll call Miriam and speak to her.
Okay.
Are you? Okay.
Through the chair, just for the record, you still have insurance, right?
Yes,
And the insurance that you have today is the same insurance you've always had, correct?
yes, which
And you
includes the
have-
SAM coverage.
You have been trying to get that new insurance ever since you became aware that the district had changed the requirements.
Initially, we did a questionnaire through our current carrier.
Right.
We were initially denied because of the level 2 background checks. We did not have those at the time. So starting our background checks, we've updated them, and they've asked us to redo a questionnaire, which that has been sent already. We're just waiting on the reply back from them. And now the loss run reports needed for the other 2 or other 3 insurance companies that we've reached out to.
And this starting in July gives you plenty of time to work through all these issues. So.
Definitely. Mhm.
Thank you.
Can you,
Just when you
Maybe-
thought you could get away.
maybe you want Ed, to describe, but can you just share with everyone, the steps that you've taken in terms of changes for the Acreage Athletic League and the program
For the
Wait.
level 2.
in terms of, the badges and so on and so forth?
So level 2 background checks, we thankfully have an executive board member that has the security clearance and training for our organization to become our own provider and run our own reports through him. Thankfully, through his own job personally, we have that opportunity. To become your own vendor or whatnot, you have to have the specific software and equipment and whatnot. And again, through his job, we were able to get a loan for the moment, which can give us that opportunity to provide those level 2 checks. We've also, once every one of our volunteers, team moms, assistant coaches and coaches, whoever deals directly with the children, once approved, they will be provided with a league issued badge that has the requirement that says we've passed a level 2 background check. It will have a picture of them. It will have whether they're a coach, a board member, team mom, assistant coach or whatnot, that will identify them as part of our organization. And they were gonna have that while on the field with the children.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. Sorry, you keep thinking you can get away. I'm sorry. Just a quick question, because I know we talked about this gentleman that was gonna do this for you guys, which I think is great. What happens in, let's say, 4 years if he leaves the program? Are you gonna have somebody that's gonna get trained in that to take his place, or how do you get
Should he
that?
decide to leave the program at that point, yes, we will. I'm assuming he'd have to give us enough time so we could get another board member certified with all that security clearance that needs to be done.
Can I make a suggestion? Get somebody certified, just in case. I would
I'm
have 2
sorry?
people, maybe get 2 people certified.
We do
just
currently,
an
but
idea.
we'd rather, we'd always like to have the
Yeah.
2 no matter what.
I think it would be smart to have 2, just in
Mhm.
case something were to happen, maybe he gets aggravated or, hey, he hits the lottery and decides to move to Hawaii. Have that second person there that can take it over
For
just
sure,
in case.
for
'cause
sure.
You don't want to rely everything on one person.
On one person, yes. And just to add as well, he's actually started to do our baseball program. So he's currently doing that with our coaches and team managers and stuff like that. So
Okay.
that our next sport will be flag as soon as he's done with that, which hopefully should be in the next week or so.
Excellent. Thank you for
Thank you.
all that you've been doing. Okay. So do we have a motion to consider this agreement for the nonprofit athletics user agreement?
So, future. So this does not give exclusive right to the Acreage Athletic League at the park. Neither one of these agreements have been drawn that way.
Well, just quickly, we've not really received that direction from this board or in those workshops, including June. It was always first priority or something at that level. So if the board wants to make it exclusive, they can, but that's up to the board. So no, it is not written that way, but we gave them.
I think
first,
they're looking for, I
priority.
think they're looking for first priority and nobody else using the field while they're on it and while they're permitted it. And I think that covers that. No?
But it doesn't do what you were talking about in terms of nobody else being on the field and giving the fields the time to rest.
No, that's something that, I've requested that with the parks policy and I continue to request that. I understand about wanting residents to be on there, but if you look at what the county and other municipalities are doing, these athletic fields, they are locking them down. If you don't have a permit, you don't get to go on.
So why
And
don't
we
we,
even, I'm sorry,
No,
just
go ahead.
quickly, we've even created like, if, again, for the fiscal year 26 with the, putting a field over there for general play. And, again, with the south expansion, I don't know how to handle that one yet. We've got
Right,
to have some
we have-
meetings
we-
with the
right.
county and the state.
so let's put that issue on the agenda for next month and bring that back to the board and let's get that resolved once and for
Yeah,
all.
because
Talking about South Park.
Well, no, we can't talk about South Park yet because we don't have the answers to that yet. I would love to have those answers, but no, for the
we're
answers,
talking
for,
for the policy, because
correct.
we also have to change the light schedule to push it out to 9:30.
right,
And there was something
The
else.
fields, I'd like separating the fields, so field one would be field one, A, B, C, and D, so we can move from A and B to C and D
Right.
based on.
That's an operational issue. That's not a permitting issue.
No, it'd be under policy, basically, just
Okay.
explaining it there.
right.
It's nothing
So
to this.
let's
I don't
bring,
even think it needs to be in policy. It's operational. It's you working with them and doing it.
right, but if it's not a policy, like you said earlier, somebody is gonna come back later and say, well, the policy doesn't say that, and you brought that up yourself.
Well,
So maybe
actually-
we kind of do.
That you brought that up, because now that we're talking about that. The way that the fields were always maintained prior to our current staff was exactly how you're describing. So it automatically happened, okay? There were areas that were blocked off so they could give those fields the space and the time that they needed. So it wasn't in a policy, it was operationally. If we're gonna put it anywhere, then I think if it's only applying to, I personally think that the Acreage Athletic League deserves, after everything they've been put through, to know that they have Acreage Community Park. This issue needs to be put to bed, and it needs to be longer than a year. Okay, we've been talking about this for 3 years now, 2.5 years, whatever it's been. I'm tired of
Well,
talking
it's an
about it.
automatic renewal if everything goes according to plan. And after everything that's been going on since last summer, and we've had this conversation, they're fine with it. So I don't see
They're
any
fine
reason
with it
why.
because they want to
we can't-
accept whatever we're willing to give them, and I'm saying that I want to
I don't
give.
think that's the case, but that's fine. But I still think there's certain things in the parks policy we need to address, so we'll discuss that and have that on for the next meeting. Patty, did you want to say something?
I do have a question before we make that motion. As of right now, they're not coming up with the SAM coverage. So in order to
They have
approve,
Sam.
they don't have the
exact amount.
coverage we're asking for.
They have what they always had, and
But
this-
we're asking for higher, which would protect them and protect us. Okay, so what we have in our policy currently is 1 million to 2 million, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So my question, right now, they don't have that. We approved this. I think it's gonna be an approval tentative to them providing that SAM coverage we're requesting.
Unless policy changed and it was adjusted, yes.
Right. So I'm,
It's a requirement of the agreement that they provide that.
right, okay. As long as we know that it's part of the requirement.
Want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Oh, 1 second, please.
Just for clarification, I would like to work a little bit more with Aegis, maybe not on the other insurance, but on the SAM to see if 1 and 1, 1 million rather than 1, 2, if that's acceptable to the board. Because it may be a little bit easier for them to get than the 1, 2. So,
I would love that leniency if I knew that another organization hadn't acquired it, but knowing that another organization that has utilized our field has acquired it, I don't think it should be an issue.
if I may, I want to make sure, not trying to complicate this, but with that, we may be comparing, and I'll let Andy or Brett or even Miriam address it, but we could be somewhat comparing apples to horses, because for an event, like for a 1 or even 2 day event, it might be easier for them to get it, or even for like a 2-month period, but for a whole year, it may be a little more difficult, but I'll let them answer that. That's why I was trying to figure out if the board would give some latitude on that, if Aegis was okay with it.
Is that something we can have,
They still on?
just look into and, if that's what we do, we can always change that within the policy next month, and then they would just have to conform to that.
Mike, did you have something to say?
No, I mean, I kind of agree with Burgess on some of the permitting, and then I go, when we talked in the meetings with them, the one-on-ones, the main thing was, is there gonna be any interruption for the kids? This is what we're here for, is that
Exactly.
works for the kids. So, either the permit or the SPA, I mentioned too, would we still be able to, sponsor them, whether it's a permit or an SPA. Like you said, that would be, because we don't want to take, I don't necessarily think we need to take that away either.
Well,
No, but-
the other thing that is not in here, and I brought this up during our meeting, and that is the facilities, the additional facilities besides just the fields, because the press box, their concession stand, and the garage has always been used by the Acreage Athletic League. And, none of that is in here. So, I'd like to, make a motion to go with the permit process. I understand and I appreciate what staff is saying. You're trying to create less work, but in the creating less work, be mindful of the fact that it is to create less work for staff. We're not trying to create an additional burden, because the taxpayers don't want to be paying for that. So, the things that I brought up earlier in terms of, removing the requirement for concession stand, those kinds of
Yeah,
things.
I have.
Okay.
So just quickly, do you mean the permit or the user agreement with
The
the
user
permit on the
agreement.
back?
The user, yeah, the user
Yeah,
agreement.
I just wanna-
Well, which,
So the user agreement is the one that outlined, it took out a lot of what the SPA. but
Right.
It put in some of the other things with the length of time, the parks, what you just went through, except we'll take out the issue with like the list for inventory and there was something else you asked for. Can you?
there was a few
There was-
modifications in here.
Yeah.
There was
just go
3
ahead and
items.
cheat them, 'cause I forget.
The first one was, adding the football clarification for travel and teams and things like that. List of prohibited items for the concession. And then the last one was 3.03, clarifying the priority for parks.
And I do want to add something in here, that addresses staff's concern and protects those fields, in particular right now. And so I do think that the user agreement should be to the Acreage Athletic League, and that's it in terms of the facility. So.
It's giving them first priority automatically, so.
But having said that, that doesn't mean that. I think this direction that staff wants to go is closing the park when it's not being used for Acreage Athletic League on the north
For the
side.
north side, for the
Just
north.
speak for, yeah, the north.
Right.
Because I don't think. we
That's
can
what I said,
necessarily
right,
close this out. Yeah, I just want
Right.
for the record.
Yep,
And that
but I
addresses
think that should be
the
in
staff
policy.
burden.
I don't think that
It can be in the
really
user agreement.
necessarily is in the agreement. I think that just be in our policy across the board, right?
It would be a
Yeah,
policy.
Yeah,
update.
so we'll
But
bring
it
that
can
back.
be in the user agreement, the county has it in their user agreements that it's
I'm gonna
exclusive
vote, I'm just
use.
letting you know right offhand, I'm voting.
This is
no.
my motion that I'm
voting
making,
No, if that's what you want in there, it's gonna be a no, and we're gonna continue.
and then you can make a substitute motion. You're,
We'll be
but
doing-
I'm in the process of
I
making
like
a motion.
the first priority works just fine.
It's my motion. Thank you. So that's what I want to know. Thank you.
So did you want to make a motion?
Can I just clarify? I'm sorry. So your motion for the last part of that was,
To add the exclusivity to Acreage Athletic League to the North Park.
I make a motion to, accept everything but the last motion to exclusivity to the park.
Wait, did we,
That would be
hold
a
on,
substitute
hold
motion.
on. So slow down, slow down. Do we have a second for Betty's motion?
Is that the same as, well, permitting, it's permitting, right? For exclusivity?
Yeah, it's the user.
Well,
an agreement.
exclusivity, are you basic, just to be clear, from what I think you're speaking to, is no one else could pull a permit for the North Athletic Campus at all, other than the AAL
Ever.
through the nonprofit athletic user permanent or whatever, user agreement. That's what it's-
And you're just saying permit whoever it is, they just have permit, whether it be AL.
We're giving
We're
first
giving-
priority because that's really what the direction was at past workshops or meetings. So it's entirely up to the board if they want to do exclusivity. What my thing is with North Athletic Complex is that should only be by permit only. Whether you want it to be exclusive only to the nonprofit, I'm fine with that too. I just don't think those fields should be used unless there's a permit.
Okay.
And I think that also gives some level of protection to the AAL indirectly. For not security, but whatever you want to call that.
Like
In your
in your
potential
You're not
liability.
talking- you're not-
first priority.
And that's not what you mean, right?
No, I was
No,
talking about the exclusive use of this,
Exclusive.
yes. It's not unlike what happens at Healy Park for baseball or in many other facilities throughout the county. It's giving exclusive use to one entity to use it.
Is that, just to clarify so that we understand it too, are you referring to just exclusive, just the league or to the sports and the programs that they provide? Because most
It's the
municipalities,
Acreage Athletic League, so that includes all their sports that they provide.
so basically what I'm saying is any non-competing sport or program could still permit that park.
Well, you see, that was the concern that I had, because the original Acreage Athletic League Service Provider Agreement included all sports. Okay, and some reason we have eliminated it down to certain ones. So I would have it say all sports, because they're the athletic service provider that has been in this community for 32 years.
Okay, back to the second of Betty's motion.
So just
Okay, so
before, so can you, I just want to make sure those points are in there that she stated. Because I just want to make sure this is a clear motion, or any of the subsequent motions
right,
are very clear
So-
for our
right.
purposes and legals.
okay. So we didn't have a second. So now Patty, you came up with a substitute motion. And can you repeat that, please, for the record?
All right, so motion to consider the youth athletic sports permit for Acreage Athletic League to include also Betty's changes to remove the required list for a concession stand and add unapproved items. Clarification on the football, making sure that we hit the gamut of all football programs. Yes. And then clarify the park usage, which would be the parks that they would be allowed to permit to.
Okay. Do we have a second? Rich?
Second.
Okay, Michael second. So we've got Patty, Michael. Public comment quick, because we're past our other public comment. So do we have any cards?
And public comment is on this pending motion.
Just this motion, correct?
It should be on the whole topic, since it's an agenda item and the public hasn't had an opportunity to speak on it.
Blue,
All these meetings we've been to over the years, right? And
Maybe we can pause while the board members are done with their side conversation.
He's asking a question about the motion. It's not a side conversation.
It is a side conversation
Betty,
if it's not
please
being
do the
said.
same thing.
No, I
You wanna
don't,
say it- you wanna Say it
actually.
louder so everybody can hear you.
Sure. I had my concerns, I'm sorry, Ruth, just give me a minute, please. I had my concerns of some of the things I said that I wanted to think about a flat rate fee. That's not in here. Strict parking policy, whether it would be on, I don't know if it would, where it's appropriate, whether it be on here or somewhere else, but I think that's very important. And actually, I like what Mr. Hanson said about finding, somewhere else for these kids that want to play and when these fields are in use.
We
that
are
there's somewhere
doing
for
that,
So,
on a separate issue. Can we handle that parking stuff just staff wise, operationally, that it doesn't
Yes.
need to be, okay, so that doesn't need to be
Okay.
here, but
thank you.
the staff can handle that, because that is important, I agree. Okay, that.
And then I talked about a flat rate fee, of some sort that's why I was wondering if we're moving forward with this, if that can be looked into in the future. I know we want to get this going, but when we're looking at the future, does that have to be in the motion right now?
Well, Frank said anything could be amended if both parties were to agree in the future.
No
This
one's
is a
gonna agree
one-year
to a
thing,
flat
that-
rate
right.
fee.
This is a one-year thing, with renewability for 4 more years. So if we just supposedly if we wanted to bring it back in a year,
So is a flat fee for non-resident?
Well, obviously, that's something more that would need to be discussed. We need to sit down and run some numbers or something.
Because there's work that we would have to do with the AAL to set up that database, which we can set up. Which would be based on recreation components, and then, of course, anyone that's out of the ITID boundaries, of course, would have.
which we
to
already
pay for
talked
that.
about
Yeah.
doing anyway, but
Rich, I
not
support
through
that.
the league, yeah.
I support that because we've been talking about that
Yeah.
for years.
So now that's something we can put in the policy and not have in this.
No, it has to be put in the agreement if we're requiring them to do it.
But I would ask that you give a little
Let's do that
bit
a year. We
latitude.
can do that in 6 months and we can
Yeah.
amend this and have it agreeable with AL.
Is
I
that
think
good
that's
for you?
fair.
But
Okay,
if there's a way that we could, again.
I want to keep it
I don't-
simple. I don't want
well-
more work for you, more work for them. We're
Well,
trying to
it's not about
simplify
more
this,
work.
but
I just don't want to bring this back in a year.
Right.
I'd rather have some direction now so we can
Okay.
start working on it. So if you want it to be a flat fee, or if it's a non-resident and you say it's $35 or whatever, or we can put something, and I'll leave it to legal to give you better clarification. But if we can put something in this nonprofit athletic user agreement that refers back to the policy and whatever that flat fee is, that would be for the non-resident. Or if you don't want it to be a flat fees, percentage or of registration costs or something to that extent.
I like the idea of percentage instead of a flat fee, because registration should ever go down and it's costing you more money. So I think percentage seems more fair if we were to do something like that. What do you guys think?
No, through the chair, we've had this discussion regarding non-resident fees. If you go and you rent our park, you pay a resident or a non-resident fee.
Right.
The whole discussion with the Acreage Athletic League, and they were supposed to be working towards this, but it turns out that they need a database to be able to do it. The whole discussion about that was that for each sport, there would be a non-resident portion that would be charged for the non-residents, and that would be turned over to Indian Trail. Obviously, we don't want to get into a whole nightmare over having to manage it, and they don't have that database to be able to search and
Or
say
is it
this
just that
person.
he would, right, so
But to give a percentage, that means that everybody across the board is paying, and we're there, so it should be based on the non-residents. If they have 100 non-residents, then they're paying a flat fee for those 100. But if they don't have those 100, they don't have to pay anything.
exactly,
But
that's
you said a
Well,
percentage.
I think,
of
just to clarify what
the
I was talking.
non-residents,
So if-
not all of them.
If their registration fee is $200 for a ITID recreation component unit resident. What I was suggesting is you could either do a flat fee or say it's 20% of whatever the registration or 10%, whatever that fee is.
So you're
but
talking about what the amount should be for the
yes,
registration
for
fee?
the
Correct, for the
non-resident.
non-resident.
Specifically for the
Right.
non-resident, to offset the costs that we have highlighted that resident landowners are paying, recreation component landowners are paying, but I believe Mr. Lawrence can you just,
We don't,
give us what?
so the current fees right now, we don't really have a fee structure that addresses this, but just to kind of give you guys an example, to rent football field one would be $75 an hour, or non-resident would be $100. So there's a $25 difference between resident and non-resident fees. So it is, I mean,
Whatever
it's
is
what everybody
simpler.
else is doing,
That's
which
the
is
whole
25 to
facility
35.
though, right?
That would just be
That's
for that
just
one
one field.
one field,
Just one field.
correct?
So we're not gonna charge that for every single non-resident.
But it would be $75 across. If they had
If-
30 players, it's $75.
So if they were charging, say, $100 and you wanted to do another 20%, they would charge 120 to the non-resident, we would get that 20 and they would still get the 100 for the regular fee.
And, hold on, Mr. Palin, you had your card up.
Just, you have a fee schedule in the part of policy.
Right.
As long as this agreement requires compliance with.
So the policy, it's already there.
It does in the permit. It's
Okay,
written
so
out.
it's already there.
And these
Okay.
policy issues that you're talking about, you can at any time amend your part policy.
Okay, very good.
But just to be clear, I do agree we should outline it in the user agreement, so it's clear.
Okay.
So you
But
guys can add that.
But the implementation of it,
Work on that. It's
Yeah.
nothing you have to decide today.
I-
This starts in July. It
definitely-
gives us plenty of time to work through the nuances that
Yeah.
we need to do
I-
along with the
I,
AL.
I don't know that we'll be able to have it ready for this season coming up in July.
Right.
I would think it would be the following season, the winter season.
That's fine.
Can I make I'm gonna make a substitute motion to the substitute motion.
Well, wait,
And-
it had a second. You can't, right? It had a
Yes, you
second.
can, when there's a second.
I just tried and I couldn't.
There was the motion, and the second motion was.
Seconded.
Patty's motion was seconded by Mike.
But we-
So we have to call a vote before we can do another motion, right?
I'm making a substitute motion to the substitute.
Okay, and.
But can I, time out, time a card out. I just want to make it clear, I'm not sure where you were going on the fee schedule. I'm okay with it being a non-resident. I don't want it to cross the board for all players.
Right.
So I want to make that a blanket, very clear. It shouldn't affect our residents. It should only affect. the
Non-residents,
Okay.
absolutely.
Just want
I
to make
think
sure
we
that
all
that's
agree with that,
made very
right?
clear.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make.
So-
sure.
We have a substitute, a substitute motion.
So my substitute-
And that has to be second.
I have a substitute to the substitute motion.
Okay.
So my substitute is to add a clause that legal rights that addresses the non-resident fee and that staff will work with the Acreage Athletic League in implementation and providing a database. Whether it's an Excel spreadsheet that you're required to give on an annual basis, so they have who the registered landowners are, but you can give that to them. The only information they should be required to give back is who the non-residents are that are registered in terms of how the fee payment was established. Does that make sense?
I think.
Yeah, I understand.
You understand what I'm
I
saying?
understand it.
Right, I
So
don't want
can-
them to be required to give their full registration list, because then we're getting back to, we don't want that.
it.
But if they say we've got 25 non-residents in our program, here's the list of the 25 non-residents, we collected this fee, and this is what we're turning over. So if it's whatever it is. If you want it to be, I think that should be established with, you want direction.
Well, just.
How much do you,
Yeah, so-
you want
yeah.
direction in terms of what that fee should be, or you want to?
Either a percentage, you want a
No,
percentage or a
20%.
flat,
Of the
Well,
fee?
or I think it just reflects
whatever the park policy is.
whatever the
That's what we
park
just
policy
said, right?
is.
But the
Put it-
policy doesn't talk about individual programming, and I think that needs to be discussed with the Acreage Athletic League for their future registrations. they're already having to charge more for the insurance. They're already having to charge more for the, new machine and,
Right.
and level two.
But
No,
we're
no.
all talking about non-residents,
I know.
so.
But so that fee is already going up. Do we think that we can charge an additional $25 to non-residents? That's the thing I think that they have to answer to.
Listen, if anybody, excuse me, through the chair, anybody that decides to go play at Royal Palm Beach or Palm Beach Gardens or anybody, anywhere else is gonna have to pay a non-resident.
Right.
So no matter where they go, they're gonna have to pay it. So if, we might as well profit off of it. If we can charge it, we might as well
We're not
profit
really
off it.
profiting.
But I mean,
But
it should
it's
come back
something
to,
back,
it should
right.
come back to the district. So I don't have an issue with putting that fee in there.
So because we're bringing back the facilities, parks and
Mhm.
recreation policy and procedures next month,
Mhm.
I was actually, we can just add, we can work with legal and we can add a section of the fee schedule that is specific to this
To this,
user.
perfect.
agreement.
So you
And
can
then
refer
you-
to it in the agreement?
So we'll
Yes,
refer
that's
to
what-
the-
yeah.
All
The
right.
sports.
Okay.
policy.
So I'm satisfied with that.
Me too.
So then you're willing to withdraw your substitution?
No, because she didn't have that in her, so I made a substitute motion that
Okay.
is her motion amended to include the fee clause.
Right, but now we're saying that we're gonna,
We still have to amend the agreement to have in there a clause that the Acreage Athletic League will collect a non-resident fee that will be
It-
turned over. to
but
the
it already
district.
says it has to abide by park policy. So that's already in there,
Well,
right?
in the permit,
Not,
I want it in the user. No,
it
I
needs to
want
be
it
in the
to be,
user.
Okay.
I want it to be. in the
Okay, very
user
good. All right, so,
agreement. That's why we
so-
have the user
But,
agreement.
but you can put in that clause that it will be subject to the adopted park policy section, whatever it
okay,
is.
so,
Okay,
Because we'll have to create a new section.
I'm fine with that. I'm good with
okay.
that.
Under.
Do we have a
Yeah.
second? God bless you, whoever.
I'll second the second.
Okay,
the second
so
motion
we're-
for-
So this is the third motion, Betty and Patty. Okay,
It's a substitute to the substitute.
substitute,
Substitute
it's
to
the
the
third.
Yes.
It's okay, all right, so we're good.
So I hate to say this, but I think we need to clarify what the substitute.
Yes.
was.
So,
Oh, my God.
We're,
We do.
we do, just,
So-
just,
So my substitute motion was restating, come on, guys, restating basically, not basically, restating the motion that was made by Patty.
Patty.
And the only thing that I'm adding is the clause regarding the non-resident fee
To be
in
addressed
the-
in the park.
in the
policy.
user agreement.
Got
No.
In the user agreement.
agreement.
based on park
Subject to the park
policy.
Yes.
policy.
Yes.
That was
Subject.
my
Okay.
mistake.
Subject to the
Very
park, so add a
Gotcha.
clause, non-resident fees, staff will work on database for AAL to use, subject to park policy.
And in the park policy, we can set out that it's not going to be due until the database or whatever
Right.
has been set up and
Yeah.
implemented and everybody
can't
knows what they're
clear,
doing.
Great,
Is that fair?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Oh, okay, but just for clarification, we're going to basically adopt all the substitution. Your substitution.
substitution.
Patty's and adding,
And then
and
adding the
adding
one
Betty's
item.
fourth. So
Correct.
we've got 4 items
Yes.
there,
I think,
okay?
yeah.
All right, I've got it all written
Patty's
down, so,
motion with my amendment.
your-
Let's
right.
keep it
Okay.
simple.
okay,
Is that?
and it was seconded.
Second.
So now we're ready for Mr.
Lou,
Lou.
all you.
And then quick, because we have public comment that we're way behind on.
Okay, the neighborhood nonprofit athletic user permit. NPOP, new acronym, huh? Just a question about that nonprofit, right? So do we vet these people that they're nonprofits? I mean, we all know what the AAL has been for years. There's nobody there that gets paid. You can be a nonprofit, but pay the person in charge of running it $200,000 a year. You know, have we vetted that 501c3 IRS statute, it's the law. You are required to submit to any person of the public your financial records in full disclosure as they were turned in to the IRS. That is part of the IRS statute on 501c3s. I was involved for 16 years in high-level ice hockey. I'm a level 4 coach. I've been involved with lots of youth sports over the years. This conversation in this room tonight, man, it is the exact example of how adults and bureaucracy destroy children's sports. And I will also say, as a businessman who has spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on insurance, don't believe a word they say. Make them prove it to you. Bring in 3 or 4 insurance companies and make them work hard against each other in front of you. If he's saying there's cases, make him bring you the cases. Read them. You can't trust what they say. I know from experience. As far as the leagues are concerned, there's all this competition we've been hearing about for years now about different entities wanting to get involved. These grounds, these parks belong to the public. They're bought and paid for by the public, the taxpayer, just like this building and the chairs you're sitting in. Okay? What we need here is we need the AAL to be supported. They had a service provider agreement for a reason. It kept you guys out of having to deal with it and out of the liability of it. And that's why it was set up that way to begin with. Now we're talking about other people getting involved. Are they truly nonprofits? Are they here for profit? Does somebody profit on the backs of the children's backs? Nobody at the AAL is making any money. They never have. So we need proof of that. You guys need to have a discussion amongst yourselves. Maybe right now is the time to do it, about when you're going to see these financials, because I can tell you for a fact that there's a nonprofit in this county that brought in $279 million last year, and their top board members split $28 million between them, but they call themselves a nonprofit. Does that sound like a
Thank you.
nonprofit?
Thank you.
Discuss.
So nonprofit is a tax status, not a business model. But anyway, I don't think we have to worry about that because we're not talking about other people, but okay, so
Yeah.
he is on this one? Oh, yeah,
6.1.
yeah, thank you.
It was kind of nice to see you come to some sort of a conclusion here. And a little less animus between all of you would be really good. So, not able to really comment on your agreement. I know you guys worked every one of you really hard on all of this. In the future, it would be really helpful if we had that agreement a little earlier so we could look at it too, and we would be able to give you some real good comments instead of we're just listening. And I know deadlines come and it's hard to do that, but the other thing is I suggest you listen to somebody other than the person who's selling you insurance. There are other experts. Lou had a good idea. You can, get competitive quotes and competitive information, but there are also experts out there who are not selling you insurance. That's who you need to talk to about risk and exposure reality instead of somebody who's trying to sell you. It's always going to give you the worst case scenario. I'm a little uncomfortable. I will tell you I'm going to back off on this a little bit, but I'm a little concerned, Patty, that you have some conflicts of interest here. And I'm going to back off today, but in the future, I hope that you guys pay attention to those things and you get legal counsel, because there is marketing being done by you for that company. You do market other of those companies on your Facebook, never the AAL. So maybe you'd like to put the AAL out there and maybe I'd feel a little better about it. So advertise for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Check my Facebook better.
Okay, let's not do that. All right, so that's it. Let's call the vote, please. All in favor of the substitute motion. Please. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, 5-0. I think we gotta clap for that one, right? Okay. It's not over, but you guys go home. All right, now we're gonna get to actual public comment, matters by the public. Thank you so much, and we apologize. Thank you for your patience, but this is something we needed to get through. We've been trying to resolve it for quite some time, so I'm glad we're at a place where, for the most part, everybody is fairly comfortable in this. We're good.
Quickly, thanks, Brent.
Yes,
He's still
gentlemen,
on
thank
Zoom
you.
and
We
stuff.
appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so first one, William Jones, you didn't put down what agenda item you want. Is it a public agenda or is it a specific agenda item? It's
Okay, come on.
on down.
William Jones, I live over on Persimmon. My grandchildren have been over here for about 20 years on 60th and 140th. And I thank you very much. It's finally getting paved. The dust has been horrendous. Big trucks and school buses. I don't know why school buses go through there. I can't even imagine that. But they go through there 35 miles an hour and the dust they make is like a tank went through. So it's gonna be nice to have that done. I really do appreciate that. I hope we're going to have some money set aside for some speed bumps in that thing, because I can tell you right now, they go through there at 35 in the dirt, they're gonna go through there at 55 on the pavement. We need to consider that. Other than that, thank you very much for all the paving I see going on all over the area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next you got Kimberly Simmons.
My name is Kimberly Simmons. I live off Seminole Proud off 87, dead end road. So on February 4th, Tuesday, sometime in the morning, a man in a white pickup truck came to our house and said that the vehicles that were on the road, on the edge of the road that we own on a dirt road on a dead end, were gonna be towed because of the graders. We've lived here 32 years. We have never had that. I know at the beginning, the opening statements, we said, be kind, be positive. My father passed away 5 days prior to that. So you told my mom that you were gonna tow the vehicles off of our road. The graders, or whomever is in charge of that, should be kind. Send out a letter. Let us know when someone's coming, we can shift vehicles. But in that moment, that was not okay. That upset my mother extremely. If something would have happened to my mom, I would have been very upset. That was not something she was ready to deal with. We need to be smarter about that. We do not live in an HOA. We live in the acreage for a reason to not be told what to do on our property. If we need to move vehicles, we will. Do not come to our house and tell my mother you're gonna tow vehicles off our property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Florian Piper? Did I nail it?
Was it?
Did I get it right?
Kill.
Kill,
No.
no, I said,
Was that what you said?
sorry, I failed.
Never mind.
Sorry.
You didn't hear it.
Yeah, my name's Florian. We spoke last week. I've emailed you, Richard, and pretty much the same issue you brought up earlier. I live on East Downers Drive, which is a cut-through roads. It's a half-a-mile road, but it doesn't have a canal in the middle. We were scheduled for milling. I kind of want the milling because, you know, the dust and all the other issues, so it's a great thing. For now, I rejected it though, because of the speed issue. We all know that unfortunately speed limits are now suggestions, stop signs became suggestions. I'm a first responder, but you don't have to be a first responder to know how dangerous it has become, unfortunately, on the roads. So, like you were saying, the speed limit on my road is 30 miles an hour. I don't agree with it being 30 miles an hour. It should be 20. That's what I'm thinking. but people are driving faster than 30 on a dirt road. It's gonna be milled, which has a lot of positive impacts, you know. I guess it's also cheaper to maintain, no dust, we all know about that. However, I'm very concerned about the vehicles that are already speeding and will be driving faster once the road is milled. And I was in contact with Mr. Robertson, I believe is his name, the chief construction officer. Oh, that's right. Oh, you okay. And he advised that half-mile roads, there's no policy right now to get speed bumps on a half-mile road. My concern or my suggestion is that not every half-mile road is the same, because ours is being used as a cut through, especially in the mornings, for Loxahatchee roads for the elementary school. And just like on your road that you were referencing, the school buses are even going, you know, at least 30 miles an hour, you know, over the dirt road. So it's a cut through road. So, you know, is there any way to get that policy changed on a half-mile road, to get a you know, survey done or something to that effect, to have speed bumps considered on my road if the milling goes through?
That's something we can discuss. Absolutely.
So, and then I would kind of like to know how the process works, how to get speed bumps, like how's that?
Through the chair, are we having a back and forth now? 'Cause this is a significant policy shift.
Right, absolutely. That's,
I was actually, through the
so we
chair,
can
I'm sorry.
discuss it
I was
later.
actually, because this isn't the first one we've heard, and a couple of you have talked to me about this already. During my executive update, Mr. Robinson and I were gonna address and see if the board would like us to bring something back. We're not prepared to do anything tonight,
Right.
but you know, it would be similar and it would be the quarter or half mile roads especially in this particular location where we know they do cut
Right.
through, and it's on both sides of Seminole Pratt, just west and east.
Excellent.
Some people.
Through the chair. I saw somebody else was here tonight too, and I think she was here to discuss the same thing off of Cheatham Hill and one of the roads that we're milling there. And the thing that I told her is, I'm sorry, but you were in the minority when they were milling the road, and that's that part of our policy. But we have so many needs throughout the district for speed tables, we can't possibly put them on the quarter-mile and half-mile section roads. Having said that, I'm fully aware of the cut-through traffic that's going through on your road. I live in that area, I know. Just like the neighbor that left, I'm very familiar with all the cut-through traffic on those side roads, especially east of Seminole Pratt, from south of Sycamore to all the way to Harlena, actually. Every one of those roads is dealing with cut-through traffic from Seminole Pratt. And it's a problem. It's something we talked about in our mobility plan. But there's like major problems that we have before we even get to addressing that. And so I don't know how, you know, we can even talk about that when we, you know, we don't have enough money to deal with all the desires. But I'm curious, because you said that you're fire rescue?
A police officer.
A police officer, okay. So, because there's been a lot of stir in the community about the speed tables themselves and people claiming that, you know, they're not being installed to permit and different requirements. I mean, there's all kinds of allegations out there, and we'll talk about that later. But, you know, I was curious about what you were, you know, your fire rescue or your police officer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So did I understand you correctly? You said you guys can't really do anything?
We're not gonna do anything tonight.
No, not tonight.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
in
but we're
general?
we're gonna discuss it.
It's a
It's a
significant
big,
policy
right,
change.
it's not something we
And
can
we've got
address tonight.
Demands on roads that are, you know, mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles. People are asking, I think you get more calls for speed tables than you do complaints against them, don't you?
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah,
So it is a big issue for
it's
everybody.
a huge issue throughout the whole district,
Right.
right? I say we build a gate, a wall
Yeah.
throughout the whole district and keep everybody up.
Hopefully gonna get more speed tables.
If we build a wall, we don't need speed tables.
Yeah.
It'd be cheaper to build a wall.
We're just,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, one of the things was, just stealing from the past. It's not my idea, but, the district used to charge if you wanted your roadway.
so people could pay
milled
for,
or
all right,
paved.
that's something we could.
Maybe we can look at that. for
Okay.
a quarter mile and a
Speed
half
tables
mile.
Right.
too.
Why not?
I don't know. I'm just
Let's,
throwing
let's
ideas.
discuss it.
Yeah.
Right,
for
but
next
yeah,
time.
but yeah.
Let's save it.
Pay for it, I really
Right.
want it, I think it's very important, I mean, and the whole idea I moved here is to, to live somewhere where it's peaceful, and then all of a sudden, cars going by. I could move somewhere, close to the city and live up a 5 blocks of road and have the same thing, so it's kind of like destroying the whole character and safety aspect of being out here. If we're milling all the roads and we know speeding is a problem.
Yeah.
So we need to address it, and it doesn't matter if every road gets speed tables, but we need to address the speeding issue one way or the other, because it's gonna lead to, injuries, death, and all that kind of stuff.
It already
So
has. Yeah.
I really hope you guys are gonna be working on that and take that safety aspect as, as serious as I take my job and protecting the public when I'm doing my job. So I really, hope that you guys,
I'm sure
Gotta
you know,
find
if
a
we put a
solution.
speed table on your road, then the traffic goes to the next road.
well, then that
And-
road
and-
needs a speed table
And,
too.
and like I said, we have an issue with every one of those side streets going east off of
Yeah.
Seminole Pratt, south of.
Then they all need speed tables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
All right, well,
or
thank
stop milling
you.
One or the other.
Thank you
So,
very much.
yeah.
Appreciate your input for sure. Okay, next.
Okay, no, I'm not gonna get the last name right. Richard D. Richard?
I think you lost.
Okay, all right. Ashley Davis,
I think
she
she
wants
left.
me to read this. I didn't bring my glasses today.
Yeah, you want me-
Yes, please. I cannot read it.
All right. Ashley Davis lives on West Derby. As a resident in the Royal Ascot Estates and equestrian area, I was recently blindsided by a petitioned road millings project during the only seasonal weeks that my horse farm generates income. I was denied a delay to the project. I was never notified of a petition or a millings project until West Darby Drive is a through street, and I was informed we currently have no policy to inform taxpayers of road projects unless ITID selected. We residents can't apply for a petition for speed bumps on half-mile, quarter-mile roads. This needs to change. I train horses for a living in our equestrian community, in quotes, working from home all day, and children riding horses with speeding cars and trucks is a safety issue. We residents should have a say in slowing our private road traffic through on all through streets. We residents should always be notified of significant projects directly affecting our properties, and we should have a something and petition for no millings. I'm sorry, I can't read that word. Altogether to stay dirt if we wish. I hope the board takes this request into consideration. Thank you, Ashley Davis. I think.
Future.
Yeah, you wanna,
Well, I spoke to Ashley about the issue and it's similar to this fella, but in addition to the fact that, she feels that she's being unfairly burdened as a equestrian running, her farm during this period with no notification. I was shocked to learn that our policy, even when we have a petition that has been passed by a certain number of residents, that we don't notify everybody on that road that a petition was passed and that we're gonna be coming on that road to be doing the milling. So there was no notification. And despite the fact that there was no notification and that she voiced her concerns and objections, that it's season, she's got people coming in and out of her farm, it's impacting her ability to have quiet enjoyment during this busy time. So anyway, our policy needs to change because I don't think it's fair. I would not be happy that people on my street went and did a petition, and I was never notified until the day they're showing up to do the, staking out and that kind of thing.
But
So
we
that's
were
a
notifying
policy.
everybody when we started.
Only on roads that are staff recommended to the board. The ones that go through what we call the advanced milling petition process. The landowners along that street are in theory supposed to go. In this case, they did not go to the two houses on the intersection of this.
Cheatham Hill.
Cheatham Hill and Derby. So, and I'm
But I
not
think-
sure why, but I mean, it's something we can look at in the future. We just need to change the millings policy or reopen the millings policy
Okay,
again.
so we'll talk
But
about that.
the thing is that, most people, when they're doing a petition, they're only gonna basically get enough people to sign the petition. And there's no requirement that they notify everybody on the street that this is going on. And, well, it's not gonna change the outcome if the majority of the people are in favor of
We
the
still know
millings.
about it.
They're still landowners and they deserve the courtesy of being notified that it's been approved. And so what I would like to see amended in the policy is that we add in there that when a petition is approved under the policy, right, once it's approved, we've verified everything, it's approved. Once that's done, and we are, yes, indeed going to be doing that, then every landowner on that road deserves to be notified. Because it's just not fair otherwise.
Very good. All right.
By the district.
That ends, yep. And I think we have a consensus that that's appropriate, right?
It happened to me. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, so.
But you're
My
not gonna-
neighbors all signed on it. My neighbors all signed for it. It happened.
And
I
we've
don't
got
think
people
it's
speeding on
necessary.
every single road out here. We just did some numbers, even out in an area where there's potentially a lot less traffic and people are doing 60, 70 miles an hour down the road. So
Don't,
it is a problem.
sorry. And don't we put things, do we put anything on our website or on our, instead of having to, and I know this is gonna go to policy, so, but instead of having to mail out and incur more costs to let everybody know that 51% of their street voted for something, put it on the website and the Facebook and let it,
They're
I
still
don't know.
not gonna
I
see
just,
it.
well, then that's their problem. I don't know. I just don't.
All right,
think
let's
it's
bring this
worth-
back another
I
day.
have
This is
some
not,
ideas on
okay,
how
yeah,
to
we
address
can bring
it
this back.
a
We'll
little
talk
We are
about that.
collecting a
Yeah.
fee from these petition people, so that fee should be covering the cost of sending out a couple of extra pieces of mail. I mean, what is mail now today? 55 cents a piece of mail?
Yeah,
It's,
yeah, all right.
okay, so
I have some
Yeah.
ideas on how to address
dollar
that.
40.
So, because if we don't,
Even if we just put a sign.
well, I was thinking, without
both.
getting into detail, but we put the onus on the people who are collecting the signatures to let us know that they did not get sick, they collected whatever they have a
Make
majority.
them
but
say
they
yes
did
or
not.
no, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Or if
Instead
they
of just,
didn't wanna approach a person, cause they didn't, and I'm not saying this.
they
about
might not be
Ashley
comfortable, but
or-
right.
or
It's why they
Pat,
didn't come to me, because I wasn't gonna pass it.
Right.
but that way we know, and then we can send a letter saying, before it's even approved, that a petition has
Has
been
been,
submitted.
right,
Because it may not be selected under the lottery, but at least they know early on,
right.
before it even gets approved.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I mean, but we'll work on that.
Yeah.
The policy,
Okay.
cause I
Great.
think you want
I
that.
think, I just don't want this to be missed.
Yeah,
There's two
yeah.
issues here.
Yep,
The issue is that she had absolutely no clue.
Well, and I wanna get it upfront even before they're selected, and then after they're selected, if they are selected, then we can send something out to that street.
The second issue was not being notified that it was happening and when it was happening, and it's impacting her season in
Yeah.
terms of, anybody who's in the equestrian season right now understands what I'm talking about. And she, has a lot of people coming in and out with horse trailers, et cetera, so it's really inconvenient for her.
Yeah.
And I still haven't gotten an answer, by the way, on how the other road, because she actually backs onto two roads.
The other
Um,
road is not being done.
it's
I
not
thought I
there.
told you that, yeah.
Oh,
Can't-
okay,
has to
so
be in
that's good to know,
beforehand.
because she told me that it was also being mailed, and I said, well, how's
They
it
might
being
have been
mailed?
doing work on it, but it's not, I confirmed it.
Because in that
Yeah.
scenario, she would have received notification if we had just decided we're doing this road.
That's why,
But-
and I confirmed it.
So I questioned that. I said, well, how could you not have? You had two roads there. Anyway. That's
Okay. Yeah, let's move on because we've got people patiently waiting in the background there. Presentations, PBSO, Lieutenant's hours. And I apologize to keep you waiting all this time.
We got.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for your patience.
Good evening, everyone. Lieutenant Sowers with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. The crash rate actually went up this month, which is unfortunate. You had 25 this month, whereas last month you had 20. And 4 of them actually resulted in injuries with transports to local hospitals. One of them was a pedestrian versus a vehicle, or vehicle versus pedestrian, rather, that individual was transported to St. Mary's Hospital. There were a couple cluster areas this month. One was on West Sycamore and the other one was on Seminole Pratt and Orange Boulevard. And once again, it's the majority of these crashes are as a result of careless driving. For those of you who might not be aware, we did have some restructuring within the sheriff's office, and Captain Turner has taken on a new command within the city of Green Acres, and Captain Sant is going to be the new commander of our area in the Western Districts. And he unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but he will be here at a future meeting to meet you all. Any questions?
Thank you. No,
Thank
thank you very much.
Hanging out with us.
All right, 7.2 fire rescue update with our district chief Amaro. And thank you as well for your patience.
Chance to get caught up on emails.
See that?
Good evening, everyone. I'm a good multitasker.
That's great.
For January, we had a total of 268 calls. Just about 78% of those were medical calls. The average dispatch handling time was 44 seconds. The average turnout time was 47 seconds. Average travel time was 7 minutes and 4 seconds for an overall average response time of 8 minutes and 34 seconds. And I went back the last few months all the way to July, and that's pretty consistent. 8:16, 8:25, 8:33, 8:19, 8:24. So we're hanging in there. Any
Thank you.
questions?
I have a question for you. Recently, I saw an article regarding and again, I don't know who, what, when, or where. But the Rawlings Estate, which is 180th south of Sycamore.
Yes.
Never at any time was it discussed that there was going to be, that I'm aware of, a fire station proposed for that property. And there was some discussion that the fire department is requiring 2.5 lots to be able to build a fire station there. This is something I want to discuss later as well, because it was never discussed as part of our what we supported or whatever feedback we gave. In that, and what's relevant to you is that in that it was claiming that the response time is over 10 minutes. So I found it interesting that the times that are being referred to and apparently to justify getting a fire department there, they're using different numbers than what we've been seeing. Like you said, you went back and you looked, and this is, so it's less than 10 minutes. So
Well, that's the average.
It's
So
right, the average, but
what's the
they were
time
talking about
going
average too. So
down
it's just-
Sycamore?
It's disingenuous to say that, the response time there is over 10 minutes. When you're saying the average response time is 8.37. And so do you know, was that actually recommended or required from the fire department, or where is this?
I don't know if it was required rather than it was requested. We are looking for properties to try to keep up with future growth. I was not included in any of that conversation. I read that article as well. I do not know where they got their facts or the statistics. I did not receive a request for that information. I was not involved at all in any of that. So I don't know, but I did read the article as well. It is not unusual for builders to have to donate a piece of property for civic use. There's been discussions, I believe, with GL Homes where they're breaking ground in the 3,000 homes for a civic plot for a fire station as well. As you are well aware, there is significant growth in the western communities, and it doesn't look like there's any end in sight. So if we wait to acquire property, we will be even further behind the 8 ball. So, but as far as that data, I do not know where they got their numbers from.
Through the chair, thank you. So I did speak to Matt Barnes, who's an engineer for WGI, who's representing. So they were in fact asked by the county to set aside, property. Their client, of course, is opposed to doing that. From,
They're
whatever
losing
fire rescue
the one or
may
two
have, yeah.
They're losing at least one estate home by doing that.
Well,
2.5.
yeah,
It's-
and right
it's
now,
sad.
they've already lost since the last time they were
Right.
here. I think they went down even a few more homes,
Right.
not including the fire rescue station. But I just, from just a general standpoint, putting a fire station
In
at
that
that,
location.
in that neighborhood does not, to me, make sense.
We-
And especially, I know, Rich and I, or Mr. Basilati and I talked a little bit about that today, because Loxahatchee Station right down the street, the Westlake
Yeah.
one up the
We
street.
need something north and west.
Well, if you
That's
need
where the
something south,
longest.
it should be at Seminole and Southern, not in a community on ITID roads where it's it's not densely populated.
Well,
So
But
we
they're-
are
they're
looking at
proposing-
property as well on Southern Boulevard, about a mile east of Arden, where Arden is. So we're looking at property there as well.
But my concern is, and I'll let Mr. Foy address it because he's your engineer, but 180th is already a narrow ridge,
Mhm.
so it
Yeah.
just doesn't make sense.
Right.
But,
And the
but they-
traffic that would be generated, yeah.
Yeah, but they are opposed to paying for any fire station. They do not feel, or giving any property for one. They
Right.
do not feel that they should have to do that for
50
54. I
homes.
think it's like 54
Yeah.
homes now.
Right.
And if you remember at the beginning, it was over 60 and then it went down to 58.
And we didn't gain anything with Westlake. I'd just like to say that again. We relocated from a plaza location to the Westlake. And if we need to increase service, then why are they not doing that there? Has nothing changed. All we got was a new building.
Yeah, because I was hoping maybe we had property somewhere that they would,
We do have
Mhm.
property.
that they would be
Yeah,
interested in buying,
yeah,
but right
but
now, they
no.
are opposed to
Yeah.
this.
We do have property and it's right at Orange and just north of Orange.
No, I know,
In
but they're
Summer
not
Pratt.
interested
Yeah.
in that, so, or in any property.
Right. Right.
I know it's not
We're
really
trying.
your problem, it's probably your planning.
Well,
commission.
correct. We're not really involved in that part of it, the location of the stations. Obviously, we do our best to advocate for our areas and we do go back with political reports advising of the growth. And obviously, we do watch the increased call volume and we do try to advocate. But no, we are not a part of that process at all. And I was not included or any information for that article. And I read it myself. Didn't know it was being reported on and it was news to me as well. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, regular agenda, excuse me, item 8.1. Consider R-302/R-303 Hamlin Boulevard paving change order number 2. Ms. Burgess, Rob,
Yeah, give Mr. Robinson.
Apologies.
Do we need to discuss this or can we just make a motion to approve it?
that's up to the board.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, perfect. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Public, we have no public comment on this item, and it's
Sorry,
just
Rob.
Michael
Yeah,
gets.
it's okay, I'll go back. to
Yeah, thank you.
I'll finish
Um,
my emails.
As soon as Michael gets back, we'll take a vote.
Through the chair, it was pretty self-explanatory how we wrote it out. You know, they had a short return, the discrepancies in elevations from when they redid the road. Everything's uniform now, there's no, issues with, tying in, so it looks really good.
Thank you.
We just call a vote, move on?
We could, I
Sure,
mean,
because I
we
think
don't
it's gonna
need,
pass.
yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 4-0. Yeah,
Yeah.
4-0.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Michael
'cause
was
he's
stepped away.
Away, so,
MJ stepped
right, is
away.
that okay, Mary?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you can.
All right,
No
very good.
problem.
All right.
As long as there's a quorum.
Okay, 8.2, consider new grant application opportunities. Do we need a presentation on this, or are we good for a vote?
Well, I did want a presentation on this because, I did have some questions, so I want to know.
Okay,
This was not something that was on our, mobility plan, and I'm just wondering how we chose, this over all the other equestrian, things that we had on our, mobility plan.
Well, I believe through the process that corridor, the FPL corridor was part of it. I know we discussed it at length. So the reason why we were doing that is we were hoping, our plan is because we're now having these neighboring or adjacent home landowners remove, the next thing we want to do is we started mowing it, we put the survey. So we want to start looking at fencing it off and any grants that we can get to help with that, with equestrian or even regular pedestrian, we will try to go after those because this is, you know,
Did
a
we get-
nice corridor for that to occur.
Did we get the equestrian grant for the equestrian trailhead yet at Acreage Community Park?
No, we did not get that.
So we're bumping that for something else. So this is my concern, is that we haven't finished that. The other thing is that when I was driving here today, where are we putting the equestrian trail on this road here? It looks like we're making deeper swales and there's nowhere for the horses to go. That's a designated trail. And there was a grant that we applied for that as well.
So.
Scarlett.
Yes, to answer your question, Ms. Argy, we did apply for that grant. We did not get that grant. And that was a RTP grant, which is this same grant. So when we were looking at it, rather than applying for the same thing with what we were denied before, and unfortunately, we weren't given the reason why we were denied for the trailhead at Acreage Community Park South. So that's the reason we suggested going with this trailhead. It was also suggested that the trailhead be down to the south part of it on Persimmon, or closer, not right on Persimmon, because it would have to allow for parking and all that of, you know, the horse trailers. But more to the south end, because the property goes diagonally from Persimmon to 60th. And like I said, this is what we are suggesting. Rather than, and like I said, we didn't want to apply for the same grant for the same thing and be denied again for that.
But you weren't
That
given
was
an
the-
explanation of why it was denied.
No.
So, I mean, I think that's an issue to get to the bottom of, and the reason why this matters to me, because I support this project, but this matters to me because we have a park that has an equestrian trailhead that keeps getting put off. And we applied for a grant to connect. This is a critical part right here, more critical than something that doesn't exist right now. This is an existing trail. And I don't understand why we would be abandoning something that the board has always supported getting done. So, you know, makes no sense to me.
With these suggestions, we have not applied for this yet. We have put some things in motion to where we do have, proof that we own the property. I don't know if that was a difference with that particular grant. I'm not sure if that was the difference or not. With some grants, it is a difference whether we own the property or whether we lease the property. So I don't know if that was it or not. But with this,
I'm gonna state this again, and I've stated this several times and it's happening again, so. We should be getting direction from the board at a public meeting before we're applying for these grants.
That's exactly what you're doing. See,
But the decisions are being made by staff long before it comes here. Somewhere you got direction to go with this project, and it didn't come from the board. And that's what I'm trying to get to, because we have board adopted directives and history here already that have not yet been accomplished, but we're now adding something else. So that's where I'm trying to understand, where are you getting the direction to do this? Who's telling you this is a priority?
all of this is coming from the board in general. You have all these priority projects, whether it's this, which we just had all these landowners clear, that's part of the mobility plan. So that's what we're looking at. We have another one on here for the youth, we're calling it just the community youth activity facilities, but it's a press box because we're trying any way we can to help the community get these facilities or some of this infrastructure in place without significant local dollars being expended. So with Persimmon, we went to this one because this was the next one that's basically almost ready to go. And to me, it makes sense because it does connect. Some of these grant agencies don't always tell you why you failed. They just don't want to do that for whatever reason. We're trying to develop these relationships with them to figure some of this out. But quite frankly, they might have just looked at ACP and say, there's really no trail here other than going on the backside of the concession stand. We went after that grant heavy. We did not get it. It is not under our control. It is under whatever state agency staff is reviewing it. So we're trying to figure out ways to bring things to the board that fit within that scale. So yeah, we should be studying. And if you guys don't like if the board doesn't like this, then we don't have to go after them. We can go after another one. I wouldn't suggest going after ACP because I don't think you'll get it. Because if they didn't give it to you the first time, they normally don't give it to you the second time. And the travesty there is that has that Acreage Pines, and they should have a better horse trail and even the one in Royal Pine or whatever, that Royal Palm Preserve, that's a joke anyway, because most of it's just going on the perimeter canals anyway. So so again, this is why we're bringing it to the board, but we try to slice them down so you don't have like 50 of these things to look at. And if you don't like one of them, we have time. You want to try to figure out another one, but we tried to match it with the mobility plan and what we thought we were, from a staff perspective, ready to start moving on and try to get other grants, whether it's through other granting agencies or even, things with TPA potentially.
I don't know if the board is really aware, but when that Acreage Community Park plan was approved long before I ever came along, and even prior to that approval, there was a use off of, what is the road that's on the
45th or 43rd?
The west side?
43rd.
It's 140.
143rd. Yeah, I said 43rd. I meant 143rd. Yeah.
So you had access and you could get through there and you could come east and you could then connect up to 140th and come over here. This is the designated trail right here, and go over the bridge and People Road 60th Street. And one of the things when that part got done, several times the board has directed that we complete that equestrian trailhead. And it hasn't been done. And the reason why it wasn't done, I was told, was because we applied for a grant and we were waiting for the grant. So it's still not done and we don't have a grant. And so it's important that we follow through with the board on these things so that we're all on the same page, because, you know, this is stuff that the board is supposed to be discussing in terms of where we want to go and what the direction is. It isn't one person on this board, it is all of us. We make these decisions and we direct the staff. So, you know, I don't know.
Who made the decision?
I don't know who made the decision to do this or whatever. I'm telling you that it should be directed by this board in terms of the priorities and the projects that go forward.
So just quickly, so with ACP, we are working toward that. The board a year ago made the priority that you wanted the Astra or the whatever, artificial turf field. So we're moving as fast as we can with the county on that. The next step
The
is.
$3 million wasn't just for AstroTurf, but lately that's all I hear about.
Well, because that was the priority, that we need field space. So the second part of that, once we're done with that, is we are required to build the parking area, which is the equestrian trailhead or whatever you want to call it, with the stations for water, for being able to shower horses. We have to build a second or another restroom down in that area. So it's in the pipeline. We tried to get a grant. We were unsuccessful. That doesn't mean there aren't other grants through ag or other things that we can't try, but we shouldn't go to the same agency if they've already failed it once, because they're going to fail it again. They're just going to see it and be like, no, we already failed it. It doesn't matter whether you improved it or not. So that's why we're doing this. But again, staff has I think a responsibility to bring this to the board, even if it's not exactly the priority, because your priorities often change and they have shifted.
So it's my understanding that the deadline for this was yesterday. Was this the one that was the 19th?
No,
Which one's the 19th that we already applied for? And it's coming to the board for approval. So at some point, I don't recall this being discussed with the board, and that's my point.
Yeah, and again, so we found a grant and we said, hey, there's a potential here. This press box has been a topic of discussion. So we went after it. We were gonna originally go after this building, and Mr. Robinson, Ms. Cantley, and Mr. Lawrence said, hey, what if we did this and tried to work it in where we can get money for new roof, new windows, things of that nature. It's not going to solve all the problems over there, but that's a big hit and there's no matching to it. So we did shift. So we recommended a shift, but again, it's based on the priorities that this board is setting.
Right, it's not something you're just pulling out from the side. We've talked about how often have we talked about getting that press box done?
Yeah,
So
but
I
the
think
thing
it's
is that
good
we
if there's
didn't
a
just
grant
find out about
involved.
the grants. We know these grants, they're annual, they're coming. So they didn't just drop out of the sky. Why were they not brought to the board for discussion beforehand? That is the point that I'm trying to make, and we don't need to keep going on about it. I want in the future that these things need to be discussed as part of this board in terms of are we, you know, we need to know the information that, look, we're going to have to go in a different direction. You can talk to me personally, that's one thing, but the board deserves to have that conversation and the community deserves to know that conversation. That's my point here. And it shouldn't be that I find out about something at a meeting that's due that day or the next day or yesterday. You know, it should be well in advance. That's all I'm trying to say. So. Fine.
Did you have something to say about it?
Just one thing on the due dates, the hurricane loss grant program. I was told it was February 18th, but that was something that RMPK, that was their deadline. It's actually due on the 21st. So that has not been applied for yet. So if y'all decide that you don't want that one or any of them, we still have time not to apply for these things.
Can't imagine not applying for a grant. That just sounds ridiculous.
Mhm.
No, it's, we can
So
try to
no-
minimize what my point is, but the point is that this board is the governing body.
Right,
period,
and they're
not
bringing
story.
this to us to ask us if we want to apply for these grants. They're actually doing what you're asking.
Yeah, except that
Yeah,
you're
this one is
missing the
short
point.
notice. It's short notice on this one.
the
That's gonna
direction
happen
regarding the
sometimes.
grant should be coming from this board first.
But-
It's not
but they
staff making
are,
decisions and already
because
doing it
they're-
and it coming for us to rubber stamp. That's.
Can I make the motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion directing staff to submit the following grant applications: 2025 RTP for an equestrian trailhead at Persimmon Entrance. And as a requirement of the grant application, approve adding the project to the fiscal year 2026 grants CIP, 2025 watershed grant for the 640 acres, and the 2025 hurricane loss grant program for the hardening of the community youth activity facility. I made the motion.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Rich, I think, said that. Okay, there is no public comment. Call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, see that it passes 5-0. Next, item 9, other governmental updates. Mr. Hanson.
The only one I was going to give was based on the Rawlings estate. That I
Mhm.
did speak to Mr. Barnes about that, but, don't think I have anything more right now.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Through the chair. On the Rollins estate. Isn't that on this agenda tonight too, approving moving forward on that?
The next board meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's gonna be at the next board meeting.
isn't it 12.5?
That's Vintage Oaks.
Which one is Vintage Oaks?
That's off.
The one on
North
North
Lake.
Lake? Okay.
So yes, the Rawlings estate, they'll be coming at the next one with an agreement or to move to the next step.
So what can we do to oppose the fire station crap there?
Well, the board can give us direction by consensus, I would presume, to let the county know, and Mr. Foy can.
Because I
Pass
object
that.
to a fire station going there. I think what is gonna end up happening
But
is the county is forcing higher density here. And what they proposed was at least somewhat moderately acceptable. But other than that, it should be denied altogether because it's 1 in 20. So I think we already made our compromises, and I do not think it's appropriate for a fire station to go there. And everybody I've talked to in that area has said the same thing. They're furious over it. So.
Through the chair, nobody wants something next door to them until they need it like that. And before we go with direction to try to scrap this needs to be looked at by more than just us. When they start talking about the response times and things, I let it go because I had a lot of input on that, but it's not important right now. Definitely not scrap something like this. This needs to be looked at further, other options, other land areas.
We're talking about the specific Rawlings estate.
Exactly. No-
The location is not the right location and I oppose it.
Okay, in your mind, but this needs to
In my
be
mind, no, I'm
researched,
stating it here. It's not in my mind. It's
research-
coming right out of my
right.
mouth.
And me as a professional firefighter for
You're
30
entitled to your
years,
opinion too.
this needs to be looked at, not scrapped because you want to.
Okay.
This needs to be looked at
Stop
further.
interrupting him.
I do not support any fire station going on any ITID road. How's that? And I think most of the community feels the same way.
Do you want to close this one across the street?
No, but I don't think
It's
that
on
that's
ITID
necessarily
road.
the best location either.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I concur with Mr. Vassalotti, Supervisor Vassalotti, that I don't have enough information on this for a letter or any type of opposing to be done. I don't mind if we bring this up at the next meeting. Give me some time to kind of check this out. I haven't read the article. I'd like to talk with the just a little more on it. So I think it's something that we postpone until next meeting.
Then when is Rawlings coming back to activate?
Next meeting.
Next meeting? Well, it should be discussed in
There
context
you go.
because I don't support that.
And through the chair one more time, Ms. Argue, I've heard you complain about response times over and over in
I
the
have.
past. I've heard you say that fire rescue will, I'm trying to remember your exact words, but, respond, it wasn't respond, but to a call way out west on Sycamore. Do you remember this?
I don't know, no, I don't know what you're
Well,
talking about.
yes, it was brought to your attention. You were very angry about the response times and you wanted to know the reasonings for this. I know where it was. I know exactly where it was. And it had extended response time. And there's reasons for these things. And one of the reasons for extended response times is lack of resources for many, many dynamic circumstances. So to add a fire station would reduce response times and possibly save the lives of residents. So just to want to scrap a fire station is completely moronic in my opinion.
Well, I'm sure that you are entitled to your opinion, but as I stated earlier, the location on Seminole Pratt never increased the number of trucks that they had to increase their response time, okay? They did not. And so it's the big lie that we got this station and it's improved our area. My point has been that if they actually improved by increasing the number of trucks, that would deal with the response time. And this is not, I'm not interested in going back and forth. I know you think because you're a retired firefighter, that makes you the expert, but I'm entitled to my opinion and I live in that area. And I talk
Okay,
to
yeah,
community
that's enough.
members
That's
and
enough.
they don't want.
That's
it.
enough. That's
And we're
enough.
here as a
Betty,
Indian Trail.
please.
No,
Yes.
we're not here to, we're not here
Point of order.
representing the fire.
Order. We are not
Okay?
here to argue with each other.
I know they paid a lot of money to get you on this
This
board.
matter,
All right?
this matter was
That's
not
enough.
on the agenda. It's not appropriate for discussion.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on. Item number 11, 11.1, presentation by Juniper regarding the athletic field maintenance.
No, you're not entitled to an opinion.
We asked for public comment and there was no cards.
After,
It was,
after 7:30.
there was no, on this item, there was no.
It says
You
public,
spoke for public comment, there's no,
and it states no later than 7:30.
End of comment time.
this,
Yeah, it's okay. Just move on. Just move on. We shouldn't be even discussing it with her. Move
all
on.
right. Item number 11.1.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I'm leaving. Shop there. Yep.
Yep, that's what I mean.
Wow, that was extremely uncalled for. We
Oh,
will
it's
make
on
sure, you want to repeat that, so it's part of the record, because that's what she's
I
asking
believe
for.
Supervisor Argue just stated that I was a bitch.
And you are.
Thank you. Can
Excuse
we have
me,
her removed?
we
I would like her
can't do
removed.
this.
I would like her removed right now.
This is absolutely uncalled for.
Yep, no.
No, you didn't
No.
like it. Public comment is not allowed because you don't like it. No, that was,
Fine. Have a nice day.
that was not a public comment.
Yeah, that's not a public comment, Pia. That's,
It is a public comment. And I asked.
Thank
her
you.
a public
No,
comment.
officer, escort her out.
Because she.
Escort her out.
Yeah.
You're welcome, don't push me.
Thank you, Deborah.
11.1.
Yes,
Through the chair,
please.
So, I had asked for Ricardo, who represents, Juniper. Sorry, off here for a second.
it's okay, everybody
So,
just take a minute.
Yeah, to come and talk because at previous meetings, and even came up this evening about the level of park maintenance, especially with the athletic fields. It's been an important priority for the park staff, for me. It's been what I would call a high priority. And I think it's been a high priority for the board because we spent approximately $750,000 in replacing those fields.
Mhm.
And then, of course, we spent the money on building the south expansion. So in Juniper, like everyone else, post-COVID was having issues getting qualified employees. You know, we couldn't hire anybody, but they caught up very quickly. So we have him here tonight speak about, what they're doing and the fields are in really good shape from my perspective. It just is where there's constant like scrimmaging, it's gonna tear it up. I don't care how healthy
Right.
the fields are, cleats are gonna tear it up. But with that, I don't know, Mr. Lawrence, if there's anything you have to say, but otherwise, turn it over to Ricardo to take it from there. Yep.
Excellent. Good evening, and thank you for having me, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to service the district. I prepared a little slideshow. It's about 2.5 hours, so if you guys need to use the restroom, I'd go now.
I might take you up on that. Actually, I'll take you up on that, but don't be insulted.
No, I'm not, please. No worries.
Your timing's perfect right now. Everybody needed a laugh. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome. So, Juniper Landscaping is a Florida-grown landscape company. They acquired a business that I worked for over 15 years. And I've been with Juniper now since 2020. We are a very large company. We are a very dedicated company to the state of Florida. We have it's about 34 branches, and we are growing. We have a lot of autonomy to run our branch. I, for one, run their sports turf division and a local branch here out of Riviera Beach. Like I said, very brief. This is just an overview of the existing staffing that we offer the district at Acreage Community Park and the passive parks that go along with it. You can just, I'm not gonna go through it. So we are a full service landscape and sports turf company. We do all sorts of construction from scratch, renovation, anything large or small, pretty much anywhere in the state will travel. And we do have, and I'll show you at the end, several local properties that we've had long-term relationships with. Maintenance wise, and I'll talk a little bit more. I'm not going to go through each individual slide per se, but I'll give you my elevator speech as we go through the slides right at the end. Maintenance is ongoing. It's a living, breathing plant that gets a lot of abuse. So our goal is to make sure that when the turf is given some time to rest, that it recovers quickly. In order for that to happen, our agronomic program, our maintenance services have to be in line and give the turf the opportunity to do what it needs to do when the weather is cooperating and we get sun and we get some rain. Next slide. Biggest concern for us is, which might have been a topic tonight, is safety. So field safety is very, very important to us because it is fields are utilized by young aspiring athletes, and the last thing that we want as a company and as human beings is to ruin somebody's life over a couple of holes that weren't addressed. So we do take we take that very seriously, and we're constantly monitoring the fields. It's the only way to really give you the product that you require. We have being a large company, we have tremendous amount of support. We are one of like Site One's largest customers in the state of Florida. So we do have a lot of purchasing power. We have a lot of ability to negotiate with different folks, and we have landscape architects, a slew of departments that can do pretty much anything in the landscape. Really exciting stuff. The key factor, I think, for me is, and I'll give you a little bit of my background. I've been maintaining athletic fields for about 18 years. The last 3 years, I've been sitting on the board for Sports Turf Managers Association local chapter, which pretty much just puts a bunch of us together that really have very boring conversations about grass and disease and all that fun stuff.
As fast as the grass grows.
Yeah, pretty much. Nothing like being in a room with a bunch of scientists that have studied one aspect of grass for 40 years, and it's really exciting stuff. Next slide.
Kind of jump in real quick with the training part. They actually do have training that our staff has gone to as well. So it's benefiting the district on top of just them being out there.
And I am jumping around on some of these things, but you know, we do have weekly safety meetings with our staff. There is constant training on equipment. There's, you know, we're constantly trying to promote from within, and we do have a lot of ex-employees that have gone on to do you know, great things in the turf industry. I think the most exciting person for me that used to work with me, he spent 5 years with me, is now the lead turf director for the NFL, which is pretty cool. So he's in charge of the Super Bowl fields now. So he worked with me for 5 years, and now he's prepping the Super Bowl fields, except, you know, last, and go back to that second to last slide. So I did want to go over couple of things before I give you my quick speech. What we do is relationship based. It's a partnership between Juniper and in this case the district. We have long-standing relationships with a lot of folks. There's not a lot of us doing what we do, and we've been very fortunate to you know, to do well and build long-term relationships. So, I mean, you can see that a lot of these properties have been with us for a long time. There's a lot more. Those were just, you know, the top 5 longest ones. We manage over 160 acres of Bermuda, 57, you know, baseball, softball fields, 83, a whole bunch of stuff. So why do you need us versus just hiring, you know, extra staff for yourself? I think that's the question that a lot of folks always ask themselves when they're interviewing us to see whether or not it's worth it. The advantage is, in business terms, dilution. I hire a gentleman that basically all he does is spray weeds and fertilize Bermuda. He gets paid $85,000–$90,000 a year because he's an ex-golf course superintendent who's got 25 years experience doing nothing but maintaining and growing grass at a high level. I can do that again because I can dilute him over 160 plus acres. Equipment is not cheap. Our mowers are, you know, $65,000, $85,000, $95,000, you know, for a mower. Tractors, $60,000. Any attachment you put on a tractor, all equipment that you would need, $30,000, $50,000, $60,000. Those are some of those items you will use every day. Some of those you'll use, you know, 4-6 times a year. Some of them you'll use them once. Some of them you'll use every other year. So it's really not beneficial to have to make this investment to then maintain that equipment, to store that equipment. And you get the expertise. I can bring in expertise. Even though I have 18 years experience and I have staff members that are extremely experienced, I'm still constantly bringing in consultants. The same consultant that consults for the Dolphins, for the Mets, for Trump International has been on your fields about 6 times. Because we always want to make things better. We're always looking, how can we improve? Did we miss something? The reality of maintaining, you know, grass, especially at this level, is you mow your yards 36, 42 times a year. We're mowing Bermuda 120. Professionals are mowing their Bermuda 240, 260 times a year. You know, we're doing, recently reached out to Kenny and said, you know, temperatures are dropping. There's a lot of moisture. There's a really good chance that we're going to get fungus. We're seeing it in other places. Let's make sure we have fungicide available so that we can treat it preventatively so that we don't have any dieback or any disease that might, you know, cause more stress to the turf. Than when the league gets out there, they're going to tear it up and it's not going to recover because it's injured.
So there's a lot more that goes into it than just mowing, throwing some fertilizer and watering. If anybody has any questions, I'll take them. I think you are bored to death by now because I almost am.
No, it's very
No, that was,
interesting. Thank
I
you.
enjoyed that. Thank you.
Patty, go ahead.
I have a quick question. So how much of the equipment stays on our property?
I believe here you have of that equipment that we have only what we're using on a daily basis. So the mowers are here, the gators are here. And again, on our business side, so that we don't, I can have the boom sprayer I can leave here, but it's a $75,000 piece of
Right.
equipment that I use once a week.
Okay.
So my program is I have him traveling from property to property with that equipment. We have two of them, so if one goes down, we have a backup. But if I had one here and I had one at every property,
no, I get
it
that.
would not be.
So with the equipment that with the equipment that you bring on, like what'd you call it?
Like
Boom
a spray, it's a boom
Okay.
sprayer, yeah.
Does that touch the grass, the turf and stuff?
Yes.
Okay, so sometimes because where I work, we talk about cross
Cross-contamination,
contamination.
100%.
So what do you guys do to prevent that?
So equipment, and I'm gonna say this realistic.
Mhm.
Our SOP is, it should be washed between properties, at least rinsed and hosed down. We're not at a point where we need to spray bleach or water down bleach on the tires or anything like that.
Mhm.
It should be at least blown or hosed off. Our gentleman, Osmar is our technician. He's usually pretty good about that.
Okay,
Um,
does it slip by?
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And then my other question, Juniper, they take care of like our maintenance or cleaning, not cleaning, but like resupplying the restrooms and whatnot, is that? who
At
does that?
ACP North, they do.
They do, okay. So I went in to use the restroom one time and there was no toilet paper, so could we just make sure they stay on top of that, please?
All right, what days are you?
That is very important.
I would absolutely.
Lady, so.
When do your kids play? What the days?
I've actually seen that a
No,
couple of
yeah,
times
it's,
on social media,
So,
unfortunately.
Yeah, if we could
Yeah.
make sure that the bathrooms stay supplied with toilet paper, soap and paper towel, I'd greatly appreciate
Be
that.
addressed.
Yeah. I have one question myself. So we're very keen on talking about our liabilities. So the equipment that you have at our park, where do we stand there? Like if something happens to that equipment through no fault of ours, but let's say somebody comes on the property trespassing, do we have liability for that equipment? How does that work? Or is it solely under their insurance?
No, I think that there's issues with that. I believe that's already addressed, is it not?
I just
I
don't
was gonna let you
remember,
answer, but
so.
I'm pretty sure that we would be, that we are responsible.
I believe the contract, they're required to have levels of insurance.
To cover
and it
that. All right, I
includes
just, I
those
couldn't remember,
things.
so I just wanted to put that question out there because I could see that coming back from someone at some point asking, hey, well, what about this? And so now it's out there on the record that.
And before we entered into this contract, just because I don't think Mr. Vasillotti was on the board, he
No,
definitely
he
wasn't
was
on the
not.
board. We actually did have Aegis review this contract to make sure everything was up to.
As we
their-
should,
Yeah.
because that's why we have. Okay, excellent.
One more
Oh,
thing,
oh,
one more thing.
Yeah, Kenny.
I just want to say my kids have been on the field. I've had, my kid's 33 down to 15. It's the best our fields have looked in the 2 decades that I've been out here. So I appreciate
Awesome,
the
thank you.
work and the work that our staff put into redeveloping the fields and improving them. I appreciate everything you guys have done. And I appreciate the upkeep that we've seen on the field. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That's always great getting a head nod from the back of the room.
You had it all.
From somebody who actually plays on
So,
the
yeah.
field,
So
right?
Thank you very
So
much.
that's great.
I
I
appreciate
believe that Mr.
Kenny.
Kisilak or Mr. Lawrence.
Just real quickly, just an update. We did add new hand dryers at ACP North's press box also, so that'll take down some of the need for paper towels and things like that, and hopefully some of the vandalism issues that we'll have over there. The old ones, the electric was already there, but the old ones just weren't working, so that has been brought back. to us.
Okay.
So that-
That's helpful.
great.
Thank you.
prevent toilet, paper towel being flushed down. the
Michael, you have anything? Rich? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you
very
for having
much.
me.
Thanks
Thank
for being patient and hanging out with us.
I just needed a little popcorn.
Don't we all?
Bring it next time, right? Okay. 11.2. Approval for the facility use permit for the Great American Cleanup. Do we need to talk
Can I
about
just
this?
make the
I mean,
motion?
yes, I think
Thank
we
you.
all know what it is.
Motion to approve Indian Trail Improvement District's permit request to host the annual Great American Cleanup, subject to staff and legal review.
Second.
Who said-
Who said that first?
I'm gonna go Michael.
Michael,
Yeah.
okay. All right, no public comment on this, so call the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
See that it passes 4-0. Approval, facility use permit for 143 Mind, Body and Spirit for a long-term permit to use Hamlin House for a wellness, meditation and sound healing class, subject to staff and legal review.
I'll make the motion.
Second,
Second.
who said that, Rich? Okay, no public comment, call the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
See that it passes 4-0. Okay, moving right along. Approval, facility use permit for Shari Roberts, is requesting to use Hamlin House for a challah baking class, subject to staff and legal review.
I'll make the motion.
Any second?
Second.
Who said that? I'm sorry. Rich,
Rich.
I'm sorry.
I went with
Speak up a
Michael.
little. I know, you should be too quiet. No public comment, call the vote.
Aye.
See that it passes 4-0. Consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve 12-1, 12-2, 12-3, 12-4, 12-5, and 12-6.
Second.
Rich, who's looking at you that time? Okay, there's no public comment on this anyway. All in favor?
Aye.
Pays that it passes 4-0. Staff presentations.
Yes, just
Okay.
quickly, I'll try to move fast. Some of it we already discussed, so it won't be redundant about the traffic calming requests on the debt or the quarter and half mile. They're not dead end roads. They do connect to other roads, so there's no culvert in between. But I do want to let the board know that we received notice from Palm Beach Aggregates that they are going to be increasing rock material later this year, probably right after the summer, I think September. Sometime in September or October, it will be just under $20 a ton. Right now, we're paying 12, about, what was that, 2 years ago? It was
$12 a ton currently.
No,
It's going up to at least $19 and $25.
If they agree to keep our ITID price, but they will not put that in writing, because I just talked to Jason a few hours ago. If not, the
It's gonna
cost.
be 23 too.
Oh,
So are we buying this in bulk now?
Well, it's due to go into effect April 1st.
April
Or
1st. All right,
April
I gotta
1st.
load up on
Yeah.
dirt,
Wow,
on
that was
rocks
even-
before then.
That's even quicker.
Yeah, that's even quicker than what he had told me.
October.
Yeah, that was a lot quicker because, yeah.
Okay.
But I would just, so Jason put together, I know you were looking at it. I was just trying, so right now we spend about 420,000, and this is strictly for maintenance. This is not for culverts, for like rebuilding roads, anything like that. This is just whenever we say our grader operator said, hey, or Bill Stevens, our superintendent, says, hey, we need to put some road rock material out there. Right now, we're currently spending $420,000 annually at the $12 price. If it goes to the 1925, which I think it will,
Looking at
which it's gonna go
Almost
now in the
800.
fiscal year, it's gonna be 690,000
at least.
and for 1,700 loads, because that's how much we do per year, give or take. And then if it's the 2350 that Mr. Robinson was just speaking to, 840,000. So the reason why we were bringing this up, and it's not because of any of the prior commentary, I was gonna bring this to the board after Mr. Robinson, and Mr. Lester said, hey, this is, I want to bring back the millings policy to remove advanced millings and terminate the withdrawal process and allow us to start milling roads, just start in one section. We'd like to start on count on roads where we know there's a lot of traffic, like off of Royal Palm, Coconut, Seminole, Pratt, and just roll through those. So we get our graders off those roads because they have to back up sometimes, and people are coming off those turns now. And we're having a lot more cut through traffic, so they don't understand that certain roads are dead ending. So, you know, I may be bringing that up. I didn't want to bring this up earlier because I wanted the context.
Right.
And we've been saying this for a long time. This district is not going to be able to financially sustain dirt roads.
Right.
And with this, you know, I don't know how you will into the foreseeable future. I mean, we'll have to make it work because you're not gonna go, I think we have 80 miles now of milled roads. So we still have 260 as of today that are still dirt. 260 miles. So it's significant.
Yes, it is. Richard, question?
Betty's online, requested to speak.
Thank you.
Okay. Rich is first, please.
Yep.
About how many, let's say, every 2 weeks, how many loads are you bringing in from them?
Every 2 weeks. I don't know that.
I mean, is there an average?
It all depends on
what's going
the level of road maintenance, things of that nature. So we get a lot of rain, we might be bringing in more loads, but on the average, we'll have to provide that to the board. I don't want to misquote.
That's okay. And a lot of this rock is also used not just for roads, but for culverts too, right? So if every road was milled one day, you're still gonna need rock.
Yeah, well, what I was speaking to, yeah, we will need it for that, but these numbers are only for maintenance. These are not
Right.
for,
For the culverts. So
for
this is only
culverts
for
or
road
road-
maintenance.
road
We're
rock
spending
or for
420K
retro-
right now
Do-
just for
Do we
the
keep
roads.
Yeah,
rock
we have
on
that
site?
number.
Do we have rock on site that we store somewhere?
We have some that we store, but normally we bring it as needed because
Right.
when you store it, you're double handling it. So we're going to the aggregate, then we're taking it to the M2 or to another location, storing it there, and then taking it to job sites. So a lot of our jobs, what operations tries to do is they try to determine what amount of rock they may need. And if it's for maintenance, you know, they do go out in advance and scope out roads, but for capital or for bigger maintenance projects where we're rebuilding a road or installing a culvert, then, you know, we do get some advance inventory for that, but we don't store a lot of it.
Do we need to?
That's
I mean,
something-
obviously that the price is gonna go up.
Yeah.
Whatever they throw our way as far as the price, we don't know yet.
I mean, it's something we can look at. We just don't have a lot of.
And obviously it won't
locations
last
to
forever,
store it. Yeah.
but I mean, if we could save,
Yeah,
I'll just throw a number out because I have no idea, 20 grand. If we put some on site, you know, 20 grand's 20 grand,
How much does it cost us then to,
double work it, right?
right,
Dump it, pick it back up. and load
right,
it back up,
and then,
that's,
right,
I was thinking
exactly, right.
that,
So we're
yeah.
talking about 2 staff
Is it
or a
still cheaper?
hauler. Right, is it still cheaper? We could try to work those numbers and maybe bring that back and see what makes sense. If it does make sense to just buy a bunch in advance of this increase, because I know I will be now that I know. All right, great. Is that it?
hold on a second. Give me 1 second. I
Oh.
gotta go back to.
Betty, was your question about the rock?
Yes, it was. Burgess, you and I had talked about this, and I'm wondering if you had made any Hi, sorry, I don't know what happened there. Burgess, you and I talked about this. Did you look into other options for purchasing rock elsewhere? and hauling it in? Because it seems to me that Palm Beach Aggregates has a monopoly here. And I know we're closer, but if it's still cheaper for us to haul from elsewhere, we need to be exploring that.
Yeah, yeah, Mr. Lester and Mr. Robinson, and then Mike Peterson, who's our procurement person and finance, they're gonna be looking at that, but the problem is you have the pit in South Broward or North Dade, and then you have the pit up at Mayaca.
There's currently two quarries that produce this, and they're both way out west. The trucking costs, they're pretty much a wash on that. The one that's out in South Bay is pretty much sticking to making riprap. So it pretty much leads down to the one at Fort Mayaca. We've been trying to get in contact with them. They recently changed hands, so we're gonna see if there's gonna be a price increase with this as well. Usually what happens with this, and just speaking from an industry standard, what one does, the other ones do. They'll bump up their rates accordingly. And the only difference, they will hold down it slightly to make it a few cents a ton cheaper when you figure in the hauling charges.
And have we looked at, does the county have a contract with Palm Beach Aggregate?
I know that the county parks and rec, I have contacts over there. County maintains a shell rock pit down in western Boca Raton. They've had that there for decades. They quarry their own on land that they've had that recently changed hands. It's sold to a developer, so they're trying to get as much out of it before their deadline is. But they've been quarrying it for at least 30 years out at the end of Palmetto Park Road. So we could look into if there's any pricing agreements that the county currently has that we could piggyback off of, or with PBA or any other quarries that are in the area.
Including some of the other municipalities like Wellington and further west into the Glades. So I think that we need to be exploring all those options. And I'm not in favor of removing and amending the policy so that we're going all in on millings. I still think that our community deserves the opportunity to make that decision. And it's still, there's people that don't want their roads milled.
Bringing to the board for your consideration, not for tonight, but in general. Regardless of the earlier conversation, one of the things that, we talked about is potential, could we use, any material from like the M1 impoundment or even the future 640, but the future 640 is still, it's not gonna happen. Yeah. And, but the material quality is not going to be the same, but for $20 a ton or for hauling from Mayaca or wherever.
Right.
So, and I believe a lot of the municipalities, they're not buying in the quantity. I mean, we'll certainly talk to them. But a lot of their work, well, there's that, but they do a lot of their work contractually, and it's
right.
And they have paved roads. Now Acme does have some dirt roads, so we can certainly talk to them, but it's just not the same level of traversing that we have, or traffic volume that we have on ours. And then the only other thing, and it's something that we probably won't bring back until April, because I think we need to get a little more direction on what Palm Beach County will do. But we did, Mr. Lester and Mr. Peterson did get some pricing on stop signs with the lights, and the ones that really last the longest are just around $1,200 a sign. But it may be something that the board wants to look at for some of these high crash sites that are not, a lot of these are actually county roads, so they need to be taking some responsibility for that, but for some of our roads where we know that even if they're not gonna be four-way stops, we should look at that. I know it's something that Mr. Vasillotti had asked us a meeting or two ago to look at, so.
Thank you.
I don't know if you heard that or not.
I did not.
Yeah,
I
so,
said his name.
yeah.
We looked
yeah.
into
Well, I
the
heard
stop
four-way
signs.
stops.
Yeah, so we found the pricing for the stop signs for the more visible and durable signs are about $1,200 each. So for certain intersections, even if they're not necessarily four-way stops, it may be worth the price to do that in addition to whatever you want to do with the speed cushions in the future, just to start doing that. And then depending on what happens with the county, with Palm Beach County Engineering, perhaps, at some point we can get some of these four ways. But, yeah. I don't know if there's anything.
I'm sorry, Jay, 1 second.
Yeah.
So to go on to the stop sign, so on Tangelo and Apache or Grapeview, I think, there's a stop sign, right? And it says, I think it's Apache. It says traffic going, I don't know if it says traffic going north. I don't know what it says. It just says they don't have a stop sign, basically.
Yep.
So is there something we can add to, because I don't believe we have it on our other stop signs that like going east, west.
Yeah.
On like Keyline and Temple and Valencia and Hamlin. Could we add onto that, or is that county that
Yeah.
we put
We can
two-way
add-
stop only?
Yeah.
So maybe that's bringing attention.
Yeah, we can add that. We just can't say we're putting a stop sign
Right,
here.
no, but that's why I'm wondering if we could add that, because I
Yeah.
did see that on
And
Apache.
the reason why we did that is it used to be the opposite, and the county made us switch it from north-south to east-west.
So,
And it's been north-south for, I don't even know,
Yeah.
15,
yeah.
20 years at least.
So I was
And-
thinking, when I saw that, I was thinking maybe we could add on our stop signs, the two-way stop only, so that
Yeah.
people maybe realize that there's not a four-way stop.
And that's something we discussed also, like a really good one, cross traffic does not stop.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Something that's bringing attention, especially to somebody that's not familiar with the area.
Mhm.
So,
And
I think a lot of people don't realize, a lot of the residents don't realize that we don't have a lot of control over putting up stop signs. That is something that we're kind of, at the mercy of the county. So I see it, residents saying, oh, why don't you just put a stop sign, we don't put these speed cushions, well, we can't. So we can't, our hands are tied. That's why, we're not doing it because we like speed cushions. I personally can't stand them, and I have a big truck, but it's necessary because of the speeding that's going on all of our roads. And our traffic counts and studies that we're doing are showing people are doing 50, 60, 70 miles an hour down our little roads. And this is why we're doing it, not because we don't like Joe on 58th or whatever. I mean, we're not targeting people. And another thing I'd like to bring up as well is that the engineers figure out where these have to go, and there are limitations and restrictions on where the speed bumps go. So if there's one not so close to a stop sign, I see people, well, put it closer to the stop sign. We're not allowed to. They're engineered and they're going where they're allowed to go. We're not just willy-nilly randomly placing these speed bumps around town. So I don't want people to think that, and I felt it was really important to get that out there on the record. So people hopefully are listening and understand that, why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and just quickly, the same way with whether there's speed tables or speed cushions, it's based on the mobility plan, then a review from engineering, but engineering already reviewed a lot of these locations as we're going through the mobility and then the R3 plan or amendment. So we're not just putting those wherever we want.
Right.
Either, because we have a lot of people requesting multiple ones on a less than a mile stretch of the road.
Right.
So, like on Persimmon, there's somebody between 140th and Avocado, that one's like 3 more on that stretch. Like we've already put enough on.
Right. We need to get the PSAs out there that everybody just needs to slow down.
Well, yeah, we never know.
Right, exactly.
No.
But
Yeah, more
There-
police
there-
presence would be great for that, but yeah,
Through
that
the,
works.
through the chair, just
Yes.
to bring you up to date, the board had asked what would it cost to update the stop sign study that was done? I got the answer today from CapTech for an update to study all 10 intersections that are the highest accident at 25,000. It's not on your agenda tonight, so we will add it to the agenda to see if you want to do it next time, but I got the email response today. This would include the all 10 versus the 4 that we had done before,
Okay.
And what was the cost? 25?
25,000. That can be on the agenda next time.
And I'm through the chair, Mr. Foy, exactly what are you looking for that? Like, is there a decrease, increase of the crash rates or something like that?
They analyze the crash data based on frequency and type of crash. And they go to, we had meetings with the county before saying that should be a justification for four-way stops.
So they want to see an update.
This board requested an update. The last meeting or the meeting before, I can't remember which, but I don't remember which board member, but there was a consensus. Maybe you weren't even on the board, but you would have been in the audience.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Miss Argy has her hand.
Yeah, go ahead, Betty.
Just on the stop sign study, I thought we studied 12 different high crash locations, not 4.
There were 10 outlined, but we didn't go collect all the data necessary to go to the county for all 10, but there were 10 high crash locations identified. So what we were going to do this time is update all the data for all 10. So we could see if our traffic engineer felt it was justified to have a four-way stop.
And then, no, and then on the signs, Burgess, the LED lights that go around them, I thought we were paying $400 for those. So can we no longer get those?
Oh, no, the price has increased significantly. You would think that they would actually go down, but they've actually increased.
Everything.
And the ones that are cheaper, we're replacing them constantly. The batteries, they're made, it's gonna sound bad, but they're made in China and they're just not holding up to the sun exposure. Batteries die out quickly. You just can't put a couple more batteries in there.
Right.
And then the ones that do have batteries are like $100 and some dollars. I forget the exact amount. But I couldn't remember, Jay, but whenever they did that 10 study, they did the 4, but didn't they extrapolate data and said would be similar to the other? I forget, yeah. But
I'm almost certain we looked at 12.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
because I believe what the intent was to try to save money for the district at the time, because we're already spending more money on these studies. I wasn't here for the initial study, but I found it a little ridiculous that the county was requiring even this level.
We were, so if I can just, we were all in on that. We were trying to give everything that they needed. And there was initially 10, but when they were looking at the data, there were 12 that were identified. I think we ultimately asked for 8 locations, potentially 10 locations for the stop signs. That was my understanding. And then back to the lights, the stop signs with the lights on them, I thought we had budgeted that we do a few of those every year. So in some of those high crash locations already. So has that not continued?
No, we have not. We haven't budgeted because of the cost of those. And I don't recall the board giving direction to do those at any of the intersections other than the ones that were identified through the LAP process for the FDOT. So, well, I don't recall. Yeah. It's because usually, yeah.
Just a reminder for you, bees. You were supposed to say something about the bees. The bees. The hive.
Oh, I don't
Oh, no, okay.
I wasn't involved in that. Maybe Kenny can, it was with a park or something.
No, thank you.
Oh, for Bob Morgan and the ALA, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have the information, Scarlett,
okay,
so,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, so. Yeah, so, but
Okay,
I do
next
know,
month.
I do know that there was, I don't know if it was at a park or somewhere else, but Bob Morgan, I do want to thank him. I just don't have the information
That's fine.
that I was supposed to get, but he and another person, and I'm sorry, I don't even know the person's name from Indian Trail, but he works with a lot of bees. They rescued
Probably Eric
hives,
Baxter.
yeah.
Mr. Baxter, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Because I know
man,
Bob's been working with them.
I don't think, it was Carlos.
Carlos.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. But anyway, they saved a bunch of hives that somebody was gonna destroy, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
We
so I
need bees, that's
apologize, I
for
just
sure.
can't-
We definitely need bees.
Yeah. so-
Okay, great.
But. the
Thanks,
only-
Bob.
Yeah, the only last thing, is next month, Parks is going to be bringing what we call Parks Audit, and we're gonna be identifying not adding anything new, but replacing anything that needs to be replaced and the costs associated with it.
Excellent.
So, this is, again, it's not, if there's not a shade sail there, it's not adding one. If there's not a fence or a playground apparatus, it's not adding it. It's just what the
Replacing
cost
what's
is
damaged.
for what's
Old.
damaged, whether it's parts or what have you. The only thing that we need to be cognizant of, and I believe that, I'm not sure if it applies to the steel and metal with the tariffs, but we're concerned that those prices too are gonna significantly go up, and a lot of the playground parts are just they're going to increase in price as
Right.
well. So we may come to the board at the next meeting as part of this saying, we want to get these parts while we can get them at a reasonable price, but we can also get them because it could be another hit on the supply chain
Right.
with the tariffs. And some of these parts we can't always get. Not all of them are made in China, but this is hitting Europe, Canada.
Right, all over the whole world,
And
yep.
of course, the material, raw material, even if they are built or manufactured in the US,
Still up,
can be coming
coming in
in
from
and
there.
will be impacted by this.
absolutely.
So, Rob, is there anything, I don't think there's anything bad, so we're good.
Excellent.
So
Okay.
my report. Yep. Any questions?
No, I read it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. It does not go unnoticed. All right, supervisor business, Michael. Rich. Patty.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so, I'm gonna start off with, last month I was up in Massachusetts and the couple that I stayed with, during our stay belonged to a community garden club. And y'all remember, I got placed in as one of the people for the garden hope and whatnot. So I took their rules from this back with me. And of course, theirs is a little bit bigger. You know, they allow like a 4x4 section, and people pay $25 or $30, and that kind of helps with irrigation and whatever else to help maintain the area. I know we have a smaller section, and I was approached by one of our staff members, Heidi, who thought she was so excited that we were bringing this back up and getting it set. And she's actually asked if she could start a pumpkin patch. She would like to plant some seeds over there and start some pumpkins, maybe use it for our fall festival or something to that. So I'd like to see what we can do to move ahead on that and let her do that. I'd also like to maybe put on the agenda to bring this up so that we can determine where, as a board, we'd like to go with this community garden. I know when I spoke to Burgess about it, he said that there wasn't a lot of people that want to be involved in it. I belong on Facebook to Loxahatchee Victoria Gardens or something, which is a bunch of people that plant and whatnot. So, and one of the things this couple that I was staying with said they like going to this. They have the property to plant, but it's a community thing. They get to go sit, they get to talk, they get to share. and learn, so maybe we can make it something to that. And so I'd like to maybe bring that back up. Let's see, ACP fields,
Just
yes.
Quickly, for the record, the employee Heidi, she would be doing it on her own time,
Correct.
volunteering.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
would
yeah,
not
yeah.
be part of her job.
Yes,
duties. I
yes,
just want to be clear
yes.
about that.
She was just very excited. She's an asset, even with the equestrian. During the meeting that we had the other day that I had with, Acreage Athletic League, they had asked for, the lights. I know we were gonna put that in the policy, so is that when we'd make the motion for them to have them? Okay. Are we doing it now?
It would be in the policy update.
Okay,
That would be-
but are we doing it now though for them or no? Are we shutting them off at night?
I mean, we could do it now if that's what you guys like to do. It's not a problem.
I don't-
It's just a small increase.
I mean, it's a,
Light usage.
we can probably do it by consensus, or if somebody wants to make a motion. So what they're asking is for safety to extend the hours at ACP North to 9:30.
Well, 9:15, yeah.
9:15 for park, 9:30 for parking lot.
Yeah,
9:15 fields.
yeah, so parking lot to stay on 15 minutes, yeah.
Right.
And they
So
would be,
9:30.
I'm sorry, and they would be making sure that people would be vacating the field by 9, and just giving them some kind of extra time. But they said they would be definitely making sure people are leaving the field by 9, and that by 9:30, everybody's leaving that thing.
Do we have consensus that that's okay? Michael?
Yeah, except that we did have the request from baseball, on Friday nights, that, they need it to go till 10. So,
And John Meredith did that during the workshop, so.
yeah.
So, do we remember what time he wanted it to stay on till?
Well, it used to stay until 10, so he was asking till 10.
Is there a problem with that staff wise?
No, what I'll do is I'll add it to the permit, so it's an adjustment on the permit, and we'll just sign off on it. that way
Okay.
for this.
Just for baseball?
Just for
Just for
softball,
cross.
Friday night
Correct.
softball, yeah,
Just
Because
Friday
it would
night
be-
only.
yeah,
Yeah, it
right.
would just be for that field and what they're using,
okay.
because it would be the same if somebody wanted to rent that field and pay for the lights.
Okay, so that's not a consensus item. That's
Good
something
with
we're
that?
gonna add to the permit.
Good with that?
Okay,
Okay,
So-
we're all good with that.
we're good with the
Yeah, I'd
the
rather just,
consensus.
I want consensus.
Yes,
We're-
so
absolutely.
consensus is
No question.
9:15 park, 9:30 for parking lot. Okay,
And
so
10 o'clock for.
And then
for 10 o'clock for softball.
Friday nights
There we go.
only. Got that,
Just parking lot though, Friday night, right?
Mary?
So,
Yes, you
When-
okay?
well,
Got
No,
that?
Friday
no,
night, I
no.
think we want fields till 10.
oh, field lights till 10.
Field lights till 10, because the game goes pretty late, right? 'Cause-
Yeah,
Okay.
sometimes they
Then
go
we'll
until,
get-
sometimes they go till 9:30, 9:45. So they need the lights on the field, on the baseball fields until then, and then turned off, the parking lot at 10.
I think it's fair.
I mean, you can clarify that with them, Kenny, but I think that's what he was saying.
We'll work with them.
Yeah.
We'll get the exact schedule from them and make it work.
But we can say consensus is up to 10 o'clock. Okay.
Yes.
The other item would be, so at the equestrian trail meeting that we had, earlier this month, one of the things we talked about was the arena and the thickness, I guess, of the, what is it called?
The footing.
Footing, thank you. Where are we at in trying to? Are we doing anything regarding that? Where do we need to do there?
Yes, not quite yet.
Okay.
I've asked Mr. Lawrence, I want to have barrel racers that are actual barrel racers come in and look at it,
Okay,
because with a lot of Western people, especially barrel racers, they all have different opinions.
Mhm.
So I want to make sure before we do anything that,
Okay.
number one, that the people that are using that are in agreement that the depth is too deep or the whatever, so we've got to coordinate that and figure out.
How did I raise my hand?
is your husband watching?
So,
Yeah.
yeah, we're
Okay, we're working on it, okay.
But it's not something where we just want to tear up those arenas.
No, I agree. I agree.
Because it's a drainage issue and everything.
I would like
else.
it to make sure that we're doing like a very educated, not jumping the gun on that. So I just want to make sure it's on the radar. Lastly, my son reminded me, volunteer hours, high school student, he and his friends did the holiday event. He just wants to know, he needs to, do you? All right, will do. All right, thank you.
If they need more.
Okay, yeah. I will send them your way.
Please do.
But that's all I have.
All right.
And just, for consensus from the board, I'm sorry, I forgot, but it was
That's
brought
fine.
up during the discussion about the athletic, user agreement about a towing policy and fire lane violations. I think that's something we need to bring back to the board, because right now we don't have anything, and I don't even know how that would work with the special district. So I need to get with
Yeah.
legal on
What
that.
kind of
Right.
So
authority
we
do
can
we
bring it
have?
back, maybe as part of the parks policy, or it may even have to be
I
its
feel like
own
it's a
separate
separate
policy.
policy.
Yeah.
for Towing in
Just in
general.
general.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
and then I also wanted to clarify, we don't know the timelines or what's happening with private citizens, unfortunately, her father passed away.
Yeah.
But
Right.
we just don't walk up to a house out of the blue. In that particular case, I believe there's been repeated attempts. We've tagged their cars. And from what I understand from customer service, they do not want to park in their property because they have animals that are roaming around, so they don't want to open their gate. That's not an excuse for us, and they are blocking our ability to
Grade
grade the roads, which is creating a real problem for us with the neighbors. And
Right.
there are other people that are upset.
I was gonna say, I have a friend of mine that her son got tagged and she was not very happy, but if it's like down the road and it could impede.
We're not, if somebody does it for one day and it's not there the next time we go through, we're not necessarily doing it, but we are becoming more, what's the word?
Cognizant.
Yeah, consistent about it, because when we don't grade a road, then we get the phone calls, or you get either phone calls or you see it on Facebook,
Mhm.
and then everybody's like, oh, well, they're not milling my road. So,
Right.
but we can't mill a road when there are
Grade the
when there's
road, yeah.
vehicles blocking it.
Right. Or objects, and we addressed that for that lovely lady. All right, excellent, thank you. All right, item 15.
The motion to receive and file items 15.1 through 15.9.
I would like to, I don't, were we doing supervisors' comments?
Yes, do you have anything?
Yeah,
I
yes.
didn't see your hand up.
So Burgess, on the issue of people parking on swales, when we have repeat offenders, are we giving them a legal notice that they're violating the easement agreement?
Sorry, what was that? I couldn't.
Are
what
we
was the
giving,
first
are we
part?
giving
Are we-
notice people that are parking in the road?
Yeah,
or-
we're tagging.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're tagging.
Or in the
with orange
swale.
tags, yes.
So repeat offenders, are we sending a letter to them?
Yes, and I believe in this case, they even went up because they've been eating the issue.
The violation.
Yeah, it's a victory.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe in situations where we've got like people who are repeat offenders because they're using the road as their parking lot, we need to be having legal send them a letter, just expediting it maybe a little bit so that they can't say that I mean, it seems that the person that attended tonight is under the understanding that it's their property and they can do what they want, but they are easements and it doesn't permit any obstructions in any of the easements. So maybe if the notifications that we're giving are not getting the point across, then a letter from the lawyer would. So.
And also, where applicable, we are contacting Palm Beach Sheriff's Office, and we're also contacting county code enforcement, but they don't always deal with that, but when they're on a canal and it's like, dump truck or anything over 16,000 pounds, they normally want to know.
PBSO won't do anything unless it's there for 24 hours, May.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, receive and file reports, all in favor? Okay, see that passes 4-0. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Yeah.